Ruto is scheduled to make his maiden presidential address at the Assembly tomorrow. After the address, he is slated to join world leaders at a reception hosted by US President Joe Biden, which will mark the end of his tour. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the session will concentrate on the confluence of crises, that is the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and Ukraine.
20 countries are responsible for 80% of emissions. And they are also suffering the impact of record droughts, fires and floods. But climate action seems to be flatlining. If 1/3 of G20 countries was underwater today, as it could be tomorrow, perhaps they would find it easier to agree on drastic cuts to emissions.
Senators will start a 5-day induction retreat today at Sawela Lodge in Naivasha ahead of the official start of their House business next week. The 67 senators who were sworn in 2 weeks ago will, among other things, be taken through the Senate leadership and legislative agenda, the budget process, constitutional commissions, among other things. The induction will officially be opened by Senate Speaker Amason Kingi. Senate Clerk Jeremiah Nyegenya says the induction will be an opportunity for the senators to familiarize themselves with their roles.
Things don't go wrong, they start wrong. So it's very important for us as the Secretariat of the Legislative Arm that we put our newly elected legislators on a proper trajectory as they begin their legislative mandate.
Among those expected to give a talk include Chief Justice Martha Koome, Treasury CS Ukuri Atani and the newly elected Council of Governors Chair Anne Waiguru.
We will also be looking at the relationship between the Senate and other arms of government, and we expect high-level representation from other arms of government, from the judiciary, from the executive, discussing how we can have the nature and the appropriate relations that the three arms of government ought to have to take the country forward.
The reign of Queen Elizabeth II, who was the longest-serving monarch, came to an end yesterday following her burial at the St. George's Church in Windsor. World leaders, including Kenya's President William Ruto and foreign royalty, joined King Charles III and the royal family in the congregation at Westminster Abbey. In his sermon at the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, praised the Christian faith and gave an example of the late monarch.
The pattern for many leaders is to be exalted in life and forgotten after death. The pattern for all who serve God, that her whole life would be dedicated to serving the nation and Commonwealth. Rarely has such a promise been so well kept. Few leaders receive the outpouring of love that we have seen.
Hundreds of thousands of people lined the streets as the coffin was taken to Windsor, where she was laid to rest with her late husband, the Duke of Edinburgh. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Kamau Macharia says the behavior of some Kenyans working in Saudi Arabia is to blame for the misfortune they encounter. Speaking at the Safari Park Hotel yesterday, Ambassador Macharia told members of the 13th Parliament that some domestic workers refuse to submit to their bosses. Using Saudi Arabia as an example, PS Macharia explained that employees prefer working with submissive individuals, but some workers are hard-headed. Therefore, he said they end up putting themselves in danger. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha has called for a ban of pornographic websites in Kenya, either by the current government or the next one. Magoha was speaking during the official opening ceremony of the Kenya Music Festival in Kisumu yesterday. He claims that he is not concerned about being labelled a dictator for opposing websites that promote racy content. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow?
his party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel Nkericho, good morning.
Salama sana, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Silvanus Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Silvanus Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma namwambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, so we're looking at Tuesday morning, and it seems like it's starting off in different parts of the city. A little bit here and there on Mombasa Road. Traffic is going to take us not too terribly coming off of Mombasa Road for now. Jogo Road is also starting to build up, getting out towards Landis. Whatever happened yesterday in this area was an absolute mess. Hopefully we're not still dealing with the dregs of that. We'll keep an eye out for it. Let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway. Is there traffic that's building up there? Not just yet. Folks are still getting into the city slowly but surely. Coming out of Western's, not too much of an issue. It looks good as well. Early pickings is what we're looking at now. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Tuesday's just begun. Let's keep it safe and keep it moving this morning. Talk to us through the day. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Try as much as possible to keep things moving this morning.
SpiceFM, Malindi. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not
Good
down.
morning. How are you
This
doing?
is the Situation Room,
September
the only way to
2022. 8 minutes after 6. Nini Nindu?
It's the 20th.
Imagine.
Good Lord in heaven.
Just like that. You thought it's the second?
Yeah.
Yeah. Da-na-na-na.
Sheesh.
Eh? Ndu?
Eh?
Siku zimeenda.
Nimepelekwa mbele bana.
Sasa masiku zinasonga.
La. Hivyo ndio inakuwaga.
Just like that. Just like that. It's Ruto's first anniversary today.
Of what?
Chief presidency.
It's been a week.
Yeah. Today is the first anniversary of the Ruto administration.
You know, once it's September, you're done. We might as well sing Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Start singing.
Is there a Merry Christmas song?
Yeah.
Sing Merry Christmas to you.
Hey.
On the first day of Christmas. You know, we're there.
Tuko pale pale. Welcome everybody to Kenya's biggest conversation. How was your day yesterday?
It was all right, you know. Watching royal proceedings. Omo. See, if you ever wanted to know your place, all you needed to do was look at the pictures of your presidents in that bus, in those buses.
Right.
If there was ever any confusion in your minds, I'm not sure. Now, all those things happened yesterday. The penny dropped, the plane landed, the light was switched on, everything. in case there was ever in your mind, like, all right, maybe we're all on the same table, maybe we're all negotiating this, that. Many countries all do. Omonalai.
Come on.
I beg you.
It's everybody apart from Biden.
That did what?
That entered the bus.
Bus 1 and bus 2, Abi. My point being what?
No, everybody entered the bus, Buana.
If you ever, I'm just telling you, just understand. There's the negotiating table, then there's under the table.
Who was not in the bus?
Fix yourself where you want to fix
yourself. The President of Israel, the President of the United States. Who else?
Exactly. Are you understanding now what I'm saying?
Everybody else was on the bus.
Like who else?
Huh?
That's what I'm saying now. Everybody
like
else. No, that's what I'm saying. Like everybody else. So now you understand in terms of where we are, who is among. Are you among? You're asking yourself. Penny dropped, plane landed, light was switched on.
Nah, there are too many people on the. If it was just like the African guys, I would have been like, I looked and so they put even the Emperor of Japan.
Can you imagine on a bus?
King somebody Abdullah of Jordan.
Somebody who flies
King Carl,
in people's minds.
The 16th, Gustav and Queen Sylvia of Sweden. Queen Margrethe of Denmark. King Philippe of Spain. Italy's President, Sergio Mattarella. Australia's Prime Minister. European Commission President. Polish President. He's called Duda. German President, Frank-Walter Steinmeier. King Harald and Queen Sonja of Norway, the President of Singapore, the Irish Prime Minister, the President of Kenya, the President of Tanzania. They're all in a bus. Tuko same.
Sawa. No
our
problem.
Uhuru is the same as this other, our Ruto.
It's the same as what?
It's the same as these other chaps.
Keep telling yourself.
My name is King Who of King of Narnia.
And then my name is Narnia. My name is President Ruto.
My name is President Ruto. Same bus.
In fact, that's what it is. WhatsApp group has been tossed out the window. Same bus.
Same bus.
Same bus.
Yes.
Lights switched on, my friend.
Same bus.
It was an interesting picture to see. However, so my day was all right. That's what you were asking me, Abi.
Even MBS was supposed to have been in the bus. He's just like, mimi singi bus.
Sifanyi
mi kazi sifanyi. Me, Mohammed bin Salman. I enter a bus.
Me that flies to the supermarket. You're joking.
You will go and find me here. You will go and find me here.
I'm waiting here.
Yeah. Mimi see you miss me with that. Mimi niko sawa pia.
Can you see nowadays I speak Swahili?
Yeah, but you've always spoken Swahili.
As in regularly.
Yeah. Umezoea sasa?
Ndio.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Well done.
Come again.
Yes. Now, something is happening. Now that we're talking about the UK. Kenya and UK inked a pact. Remember? Yes. We inked a pact.
For many things. Which one specifically?
Trade. Then, after inking that pact, we are also members of the East African community. And as very active members of the East African community, the protocols within the East African community also apply to us. So the EAC has some tariffs on goods entering the EAC market from outside the EAC markets. There are some tariffs that come in. Now, because of our deal with the UK is saying, but we have a deal. This thing of now imposing EAC tariffs on goods coming from the UK to your market.
And we're supposed to have done direct.
We have our direct deal. No. So now there's issues there bubbling under. To discuss that, this morning, we'll be having Edgar Odari, he's the Executive Director of Econews Africa, the impact of the Kenya-UK Trade Pact on EAC relations. Because of that deal and the blah, 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 blahs. Should we be signing direct bilateral agreements with these countries? Remember, there's one on the table with America. Joe Biden pulled it after we had gone so far with Trump. Now he starts talking about sending out trade delegations where we can restart those conversations. Should we go on with those ones? That is the issue. Keep it here for that, 7 a.m. 8 o'clock, we talk about what we're going to be doing this weekend, this Sunday. This is attending the Africa Concord Elegance. The Golden Jubilee of the Africa Concord Elegance takes place on Sunday at the racecourse. Peter Wande is the chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. These are the guys who organize the concours. He'll be here at 8 a.m. We'll be talking about this event, what we expect. 50 years, like for real, like they've been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah, every year for 50 years.
What's their motivation? How much money do they make out of this? Who pays them?
Wow.
All those things we'll be finding out.
It's for the culture.
What culture? They'll tell us. All those things. He's coming to tell us at 8 a.m. Keep it here for that. And then at 9, now that the Queen was buried yesterday, let's now look back at what has been happening. All these conversations about Sijui, the legacy, the brutal legacy of Britain in Kenya and other countries in Africa and other parts of the world. Joel Kimutai Bozek is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He'll be here, joined by Patrick Gadara, communications consultant. We'll be talking about all this complaint. What is it that people are saying? Oh, the Queen is dead, but yeah, we must revisit. Okay?
Yeah.
Tell us about COVID.
Joe Biden says that COVID is over in the United States. All right?
If this was Trump.
Where?
They've just said, pause that.
Hold on.
Don't bury the Queen yet. At you,
COVID imefa? Imeisha.
Uh-huh.
This is on a day when 19,891 new cases and 90 new deaths were recorded in the United States. The president said that in fact, not just in a roads, not just any kind of talk. He told
an off-the-cuff remark.
No. It was not a meeting with Fauci as he's stepping down in his office. No. It was a declaration, and he has declared the pandemic over in the U.S., even as the number of Americans who have died from COVID continues to rise. He said, while we still have a problem, the situation is rapidly improving. Statistics show that over 400 Americans on average are dying from the virus each day. The head of the World Health Organization said last week that the end of the pandemic is in sight. So he was on 60 Minutes on Sunday, and he said the U.S. is still doing a lot of work to control the virus. But he said, look, if you notice, he was now gesturing towards the crowd, and he said, if you notice, nobody's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. I think it's changing.
Yeah.
So he's declared, it's over. However, administration officials told media on Monday that the comments did not signal a change in policy and that there were no plans to lift the ongoing public health emergency status. The U.S. extended the public health emergency, which has been in place since January 2020 through till 13th of October at least. 1 million Americans have died from the disease. Data from Johns Hopkins University shows that the 7-day average of deaths currently stands at 400, with more than 3,000 dead in the last week. In January 2021, by comparison, 23,000 people were reported dead over the virus in a single week-long span. 65% of the total U.S. population is considered to be completely vaccinated. So, with all of these things happening, the president has said, yeah, we're good.
We're good.
After
all, I got it.
Surely, I got it. I'm alive. So, it's not going to wipe us all out. 6 people have tested positive for the disease in Kenya. From a sample size of 487, positivity rate is now 1.2%. Of course, a smaller sample size and more numbers means you have a higher percentage. But again, if you're going to do a comparison of numbers between Kenya and the United States, for example, this is but a drop in the pond. 4 of the cases of Kenyans, 2 are foreigners and still looking at getting people vaccinated. Not a problem of not being able to find vaccines or anything like that. That's what it looks like for COVID.
All right, we're live streaming the show. The live stream is up, SpiceFM KE on YouTube and Facebook. If you're online, let us know via Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Tell us where you're locked in from this morning. After we take a look at the weather forecast, we will be doing our usual morning shout-outs to you. It's 19 after 6.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music.
Nairobi this morning, we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 15. 13 degrees and clear conditions in Nakuru, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 23 in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 16. We are looking at highs of 24 in a clear Eldoret, currently at 12. It's raining this morning in Mombasa at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 23, and we'll see lows of 24 in a rainy Malindi, going to highs of 29. 18 degrees and clear in Kisumu, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 28 in a clear Kakamega at 15. Looking out into Kampala, it's cloudy at 18, highs of 29. We'll also see highs of 29 in a cloudy Dar es Salaam at 22. It's 8 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 22, and we'll see highs of 29 in yet another morning of rain in Lagos at 24. It's 24 and clear in Kinshasa, highs of 31. Looking out into Beijing, it's sunny at 24 Tuesday afternoon. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 10. 7 degrees in Paris, temperatures are dropping significantly. We'll see highs of 18, and we'll see highs of 19 in a cloudy London at 14. It's 22 degrees in New York Monday night. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 29 and lows of 20.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, 22 minutes after 6. Who is online?
Agri Shikanga is listening from Mitume in Kitale and says, good morning. Willie says, count me in. And Kenny says, habari za asubuhi nduoko. Good morning. Salimia Eric Latif. Si umesalimiwa.
Nimesalimika.
Na Siti Muga. Mkono kwa hewa. Good morning, Siti. I'm listening to you from Kikambura in Kikuyu constituency. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely day to you. Welcome back, CT. Well, not yet. How was the Queen's burial? He will come and tell us. Don't worry. Tyrone is tuned in from Nyeri, Mombasa, and Emuhaya, which is a very interesting town. It's where Jack Sangura is tuned in from this morning and says...
From Emuhaya.
From Emuhaya. The people of Emuhaya are aiming higher. Okay. John says, good morning. He's in this morning. Ashley's also tuned in. Saying hello to Beatrice Ngenya, who's tuned in this morning. Mwaura Njoroge says, Karibu Sana. Good to see you too. Martin Wande is tuning in from Gigiri, and David Munyao is hearing us loud and clear from just over here. Vincent, we see you. Good morning. Newton, good morning to you as well. Dominic is tuned in, and quite a number of other people online this morning. Paul, we see you tuned in from Narok East. Karibuni Sana, and good morning.
Yes, indeed. Time for the proverb. All right. Let's do some proverbs from Tanzania. Of course, many of them are going to be like Swahili.
Like Swahili?
Yeah. Every bird flies with its own wings.
I hope so.
Every bird flies with its own wings. Proverb from Tanzania. What are they saying?
You do your thing, man. You're responsible for your... You use somebody else's leg to walk. You use your own. Abi?
So therefore?
You're responsible for yourself. Abi?
Gisot.
Or take care.
Gisot. Okay. Hiya. Let's look at the newspapers. Today, if you buy the Standard from anywhere across the country, go through the pages. There's a page that you will find a QR code. Scan that QR code and you stand a chance of winning some goodies, including shopping voucher, cash voucher, or branded merchandise from Standard. QR is for quick rewards. QR code. Okay?
Okay.
What's on the front pages?
On the front page of the Standard, farewell like no other, the British aristocrats showcased the best of their culture and rituals as the world bade goodbye to the longest-serving monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, with billions watching the ceremony around the world. The power play, colour and honour accorded to the Queen was one of a kind. I mean, there's a pictorial covered across board. The end of an era is what was on The Nation. Britain says farewell to Queen Elizabeth II at a historic state funeral attended by world leaders, among them William Ruto. As a country much changed since the Queen's coronation in 1953, digs deep into its centuries of tradition to honour the only monarch most of its citizens have ever known.
It was televised all over.
Yes, it was.
And it went strictly according to plan, right? Especially in timing. They did not allow people to speak. All these delegations that have come to be with us as we mourn our departed Queen. How many people spoke? The Prime Minister? Madam Truss?
Yes, she spoke. She read.
She read.
Yeah. Who else?
Huh?
There were quite a number, though.
So the guys who were there, and then the service was short.
It was 55 minutes.
Pop.
Yes,
Start,
quickly.
finish.
Yeah.
Guys come in a bus. After the service is over, people bus 1, enter bus 1. Bus 2, enter bus 2, and go. So I will read for us how the times went.
Okay.
At exactly what time? What happened?
So it's okay. So, I'm looking for that exact timing story.
Page 6.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, the Queen's final journey to her resting place. After days of lying in state, the body of Queen Elizabeth II made its final journey in a grand state funeral. It travelled first to Westminster Abbey for a religious service in front of a congregation of thousands and made its way to Windsor Castle for a more intimate committal service and finally a private burial. It was a day of emotion. 8 a.m. BST, the Queen's lying in state at Westminster Hall in the heart of London, where people queued for hours to view her coffin. A short distance away at Westminster Abbey, the doors opened for guests to start arriving at the funeral service at 11 o'clock. Heads of state from across the world flew in to join members of the royal family to remember the Queen's life and service. Senior UK politicians and former prime ministers were also there. Members of royal families from Europe, many of whom were blood relatives of the Queen, were also in attendance. 10:44, the Queen's coffin was lifted from the catafalque at Westminster Hall, where it had been resting since Wednesday, and was taken to Westminster Abbey for her funeral service. She was carried to the Abbey on the state gun carriage of the Royal Navy, drawn by 142 sailors. The carriage was last seen in 1979 for the funeral of Prince Philip's uncle, Lord Mountbatten, and was used for the Queen's father, George VI, in 1952. Senior members of the royal family, including the new king and his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, followed the gun carriage in procession. The pipes and drums of the Scottish and Irish regiments led the ceremony, along with the members of the Royal Air Force and the Gurkhas. The route was lined by the Royal Army, Royal Navy, and Royal Marines, and a guard of honour stood in Parliament Square, made up of 3 military services, accompanied by a Royal Marines band. At 11 o'clock sharp, not 11:01, the Queen's lifelong sense of duty was remembered by her state funeral service, attended by 2,000 guests at the Abbey. A state funeral, typically reserved for kings or queens, followed strict rules of protocol, such as a military procession. The Abbey, hosting the funeral service, is the historic church where Britain's kings and queens are crowned, including the Queen's own coronation in 1953. So, the hymn, "The Lord's My Shepherd," sung to the Crimmon tune, which hails back to the parish in Aberdeenshire, not far from the Queen's Balmoral estate, the location of her death. The hymn was also sung at the Queen's wedding to the Duke of Edinburgh. 11:55 a.m. Towards the end of the funeral service, the last post, a huge bugle call was played, followed by a 2-minute national silence, the national anthem, and a lament played by the Queen's piper, who, interestingly enough, woke her up every morning, brought the service to an end just after midday. 12:15, the Queen's coffin was then drawn in a walking procession from the Westminster Abbey to Wellington Ark at London's Hyde Park corner. And so, of course, there were crowds who were in procession as they made their way through. Once again, the King and members of the royal family walked behind the gun carriage bearing the Queen's coffin. Camilla, the Queen Consort, the Princess of Wales, the Countess of Wessex, and the Duchess of Sussex joined the procession in cars. Once at Wellington Ark, the coffin was then transferred to the new state hearse for its final journey to Windsor Castle. 3 p.m. The hearse is expected to arrive at Windsor Castle. 4 p.m. the coffin enters St. George's Chapel for a committal service and for close family and a smaller group of 800 guests. The imperial state crown was then removed from the coffin, separating the Queen from her crown for the final time.
Oh, yeah.
And then at 4:45, the committal service came to an end, and the King and members of the royal family leave the chapel. At 7:30 p.m., at a family service, the Queen was buried together with her late husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, at King George VI Memorial Chapel, located inside St. George's Chapel. Her marble slab will be engraved Elizabeth II, 1926 to 2022.
If you just think about the other, monarchs and royals who've been buried many years before, and their tombs and graves are still visible today, then you can just see the marble slab with 1926 to 2022. Unless something drastic happens to the world, people will come like 2,000 years from today, will see that.
Yeah.
And they'll see, wow, there was one, she was the longest serving at that point, of that generation. Maybe there'll be another one since then. The other notable thing is just to think about Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. The man died, and the man was not buried until yesterday. When now he was buried alongside his wife.
His wife, yeah.
You are consorts.
Until.
Yeah. As in, you have to, you're somewhere, you wait for the sovereign to die, so that then, that's when you are buried. And they had to, all right, anyway. So, lying there at Windsor alongside her late husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, and of course, the Queen Mother is also there, and her late father is also there. Good one.
Very. I mean, it went really well.
It went well. It went well, and it also had very many colorful things. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the traffic, and then we look at other stories in the papers, right? 8:27 to 7. Time for us to do like that. And if there's anything that we ought to talk about on the roads, you know what to do. Let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice!
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me.
Traffic in certain parts of the city this morning, and it's not really anything to be worried about just yet. It's building up on the Thika Superhighway. We're also seeing a build up coming out of Westlands. But again, folks are moving along swiftly. We're probably not going to see much of an issue until after 7. So indeed, now would be the time to leave if you want to stay away from the traffic that is likely to be later. Jogo Road is also building up here and there, getting into the CBD. Other than that, really not much to look at for now. I'm sure if you're in it, you've gotten where you're going without too much of a delay. Just keep an eye on things throughout the morning, and then let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life.
All right, 25 minutes to 7. Something else that was happening there. Let's look at the facts and figures about the Queen's funeral. The numbers. The number of dignitaries and guests in Westminster Abbey for the state funeral, ranging from King Charles III and other royals to world leaders, including President William Samoei Kipchirchir Arap Ruto, 2,000. All those people were crammed in that at Westminster Abbey for the funeral. The number of guests at a committal service at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle, 800. But there were 5,949 military personnel deployed throughout the meticulously choreographed operation that began with the death on September 8th at the Balmoral Estate in Scottish Highlands. These are 4,416 from the Army, 847 from the Navy, 686 from the Air Force, 175 Armed Forces personnel from the Commonwealth, 1,650 number of military personnel involved in the pomp-filled procession at the Queen's coffin from Westminster Abbey to Wellington Arch after her funeral. 1,000 lined the streets along the procession route when the coffin reached Windsor. 410 military personnel took part in the procession. 480 lined the streets. 150 in a guard of honor. 130 in other ceremonial duties. More than 10,000 police officers from Metropolitan Police. 262 years since the last time a funeral was held at Westminster Abbey for a British monarch. This was King George II's funeral in 1760. Why? Jesus. 22 miles or 36 kilometers of barriers erected in central London alone to control crowds. 1 million, the number of people London Transport Authorities estimated to visit the capital yesterday. 125 movie theatres opened their doors to broadcast the funeral live. 2,868 diamonds, along with 17 sapphires, 18 emeralds, 269 pearls, 4 rubies, sparkle in the imperial state crown. All those things on that one crown. We said it's about how many kilometers? Close to 3 kgs heavy.
On her head.
It has 2,868 diamonds, 17 sapphires, 11 emeralds, 269 pearls. Hey.
Or more.
Or more. Or more. Or
That's
more.
the GDP of an entire country sitting on somebody's head.
That is it. And in fact, there have been so many people, some quarters have been calling for the return of the largest diamond ever found. It's called the Star of Africa, which is part of the British royal family's crown jewels.
Imagine, it's theirs.
Well, they found it.
Where?
They found it. It's theirs.
Where did they find it? Sawa.
See, they found it.
Okay, no problem.
The people from that place, they found it.
Find it. Okay, sawa. Finders, keepers, losers, because.
Yeah. Another story.
Can I come to Kenya?
Yes.
It was a big one yesterday. 10 digital loan firms given licenses as 278 others wait. There was jubilation in some courts because people were saying, this one that I've borrowed from is not licensed. They can't touch me. They can't call me. After all, you don't have a license. As who are you operating? Who has your money? Me? No. 10 digital lenders have been licensed to operate in the country after complying with the new laws of the central bank. Some 278 digital lenders who have applied for new licenses but have not yet completed the process have been allowed to continue operating pending a review of their applications. So just in case you thought they've been banned, they have not. However, CBK ordered all unregulated digital lenders who did not apply for the licenses to cease operations. He said it has received 288 license applications since March this year. The approved digital credit providers include 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other applicants are at a different stage in the process, largely awaiting the submission of requisite documentation. They're urging applicants to submit the pending documentation expeditiously to enable the completion of the review of applications. The bank has ordered all unregulated digital lenders who didn't apply for licenses to cease operations. This means only 288 digital lenders in the country are allowed to continue offering their loan services to borrowers. The Central Bank of Kenya Amendment Act 2021 placed the DCIs under the DCPs under the purview of the CBK to protect borrowers from predatory lending practices. This year, the bank gazetted the Digital Credit Providers Regulations to guide the licensing and regulation of the digital lenders. The regulations give unregulated digital lenders a 6-month window expiring this month to acquire the licenses. In the new regulations, the CBK requires the lenders to give the names and addresses of their shareholders as well as the terms and conditions of their loans. This seeks to eliminate the arbitrary adjustment of loan terms by the lenders. It also requires the lenders to provide the pricing model and parameters of their loans to curb the exploitative interest rates charged by the lenders on their loan products, oftentimes several times above the existing market rates. So it was seen as a boost to borrowers, as it is seen. The regulations mandate the lenders to seek the consent of the borrowers before they forward borrower information to be listed on credit reference bureaus for defaulting.
So now what happens to those that have not been licensed?
If you've applied and your license has not been
processed yet,
you can continue operating pending your application approval. For those who have not even given their papers or they've been denied, you must stop forthwith.
This is it. This is the end of you and
it's done. You're finished.
And lending.
Yeah, you're done.
Why? Okay. Tough one. Higher. Let me tell you. See, MPs have been meeting. They started meeting yesterday. So members of the National Assembly are going through induction at Safari Park Hotel in Nairobi. Members of the Senate are doing their induction in Naivasha. Nairobi is too mainstream.
Yeah. Nairobi is too mainstream.
Yeah, I mean,
why?
If those guys are in Nairobi, see us guys will go to Naivasha. So us guys, senators, are in Naivasha, and us guys called MPs are in Nairobi. I'm looking for that story because I'd seen it. The Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Mr. Wetangula, has told MPs, you guys don't worry. With the SRC is talking about removing our allowances. No, I'll have a word with them. I will talk to them. I'm looking for that story. Where is it? Where is the story when you're looking for it?
I know it is on The Nation, but that doesn't help you.
I will read it.
Ahead.
Read the one on The Nation.
The one for the plenary allowances and the ones that they want back.
That one.
Okay. Members of Parliament, MPs will be paid more than a judge of the... Okay. MPs will be paid more than a judge of the Court of Appeal if the parliamentary leadership manages to push the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to reinstate the plenary seating allowances. Is this the one you're talking about?
That's the story.
Okay. The 416 MPs in the two houses of Parliament, National Assembly, which comprises 349, and Senate, which comprises 67, in the 11th and 12th Parliaments had been pocketing 5,000 shillings in plenary sitting allowance. However, on the 28th of July, the SRC chairperson Lynn Mengich published a Gazette notice abolishing the allowance, even as she introduced 150,000 in house allowances, settling their monthly pay at 710,000 and upgraded their job group. The notice came into force on the 9th of August. Other than the house allowance, the monthly remuneration for the lawmakers includes 426,000 in basic salary and 134 in salary market adjustment. Decide whatever that means. The monthly pay does not include the allowances they pocket while attending to house matters. The scrapping of the plenary sitting allowance was so that the MP's monthly pay does not exceed that of Court of Appeal judges, who are superior in the pay grade. But this has not gone down well with the newly inaugurated MPs who are yet to start discharging their mandate. So, yesterday, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula gave the clearest indication that the abolished sitting allowance will be restored. While addressing lawmakers during their induction at a city hotel, Mr. Wetangula assured the MPs that they have no reason to worry, as he has already initiated talks with the SRC. We live incrementally and not by reduction. he said. Yay, God. Okay. The Speaker of the National Assembly chairs the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is in charge of the welfare of MPs and parliamentary staff. We must have an equitable approach where MPs are clearly facilitated to do their work. Comparisons between Parliament and other departments of government have been made and distinctions drawn.
Yeah.
I am sure there will be no scandal, the Speaker said. Last month, Ms. Mengich said that the decision to abolish the 5,000 sitting allowance for MPs and 3,000 for MCAs will save the taxpayer, get this, 8.2 billion shillings
annually.
5 years, over 5 years.
Over 5 years.
They said they looked at the pay of state workers from an equity and fairness perspective, which is equal pay for equal value of work. It is what we use to evaluate all jobs and determine relative job worth. And so, according to them, it made sense.
This thing of sitting allowance, I don't get it. So you get a salary,
Yes.
and when you go to work, you get paid an allowance.
When you go to actually sit to do the work for which you're in Parliament, then you want an allowance. But you're getting a salary to do that same thing. That's what it is. You're not traveling
Because
anyway.
it's
It's not a per
5,000
diem.
per every plenary session. We're not even talking about committee out of town.
No.
You've
You
gone
sit inside the
in plenary.
Parliament.
You're
in
just
plenary.
sitting there.
You sit. You want 5K.
5,000.
So if you work...
There are three four sessions per week.
Yes.
It's 20 Gs every week. You just clock in, go. 20, 20, 20, 20. Like that.
Yeah.
And then there's fuel allowance. Car maintenance allowance.
It befuddles the mind, doesn't it, just?
Yeah. And the thing is that they're going now to use this as leverage with, and on many other things for the SRC to actually push through something. And the SRC will bend over backwards. And President Ruto, even though he really, really wants to, he said he wants to run a lean government, he wants to make sure that he can save as much as he can, this is a political one.
Yep.
He wants his MPs to be able to pass his bills. He wants to maintain a good name with them because he's looking at 2027. So he'll strike a deal and say, all right, let's just give them. I mean, after all, it's just about $1 billion a year.
Ooh, no biggie. Water off a duck's back.
Isn't it? Yeah. That's where the issues are going to be. The big issues will be on that particular one. Meanwhile, there's a guy who is a former boss of KETRACO, the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company. The anti-graft agency EACC has filed a fresh application to stop the top manager from disposing his assets worth 216 million shillings. The EACC in the suit filed before the High Court claims that they have established that Peter Maina Jehia, who's KETRACO's supply chain manager, cannot explain the source of the funds suspected to be proceeds of crime and corruption. Our investigations have revealed that he has unexplained wealth totaling 216,374,181. We are at the final stage of filing an application for forfeiture of the assets and asking the court to freeze the properties so that he does not dispose them. In March, they had obtained orders freezing Jehia's and his wife's Julie Helen Matu's accounts and assets over suspicion that they were acquired through corruption. They want the court to extend these orders freezing the assets to allow them to file formal application for forfeiture of the states. Their lawyer had submitted that between January 2010 and March 2021, when Jehia was suspected in engaging in corruption, 2010 to 2021 is how many years? 11 years. The investigations established that he acquired several properties and cash in bank accounts worth 278 million shillings. His legitimate income within this period was 40 million. But he had 278. So if you put 40 million shillings and you invest wisely, it can grow in 10 years. When someone explained the disproportionate amounts in his income and assets, he satisfactorily explained how he acquired an additional 21 million. So we can see the 40 is from your salaries. 21 million you can explain, and we have seen, you bought land here, you converted, you sold. You bought an old house, you sold. You did this and the other, you traded. 21 million you've made. There's 216 million shillings, which it's not making sense. His monthly salary is 326,000 bob.
Huh?
326,000.
Okay.
shillings.
Mm-hmm.
His monthly pay.
Mm-hmm.
He has assets worth 278 million shillings.
Mm-hmm.
He can explain about 60 million.
So
there's
218 million, we don't know where it's coming from.
Some 216. EACC is saying this one we can't really trace how you made this money. Can you please explain? So they want that order freezing his assets to be extended. Aya. Tuambie story ingine.
What? Okay. So, I mean, looking at, of course, coming back to the country, there's so many questions. We will probe state captures and conflict of interest, Gachagua says. The government will probe what it terms state capture in the previous administration to bring in to book those it believes have run down the economy. This was a declaration by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. We will set up a commission to look into state capture and conflict of interest, which in our view is responsible for the economic crisis the country is facing. And even if we do not want to pin anybody down, we would like to have recommendations so that in future, state capture and conflict of interest will never again impoverish the country. So I think he's looking at those two factors as things that did then impoverish the country. There will be, guess what? A commission. And it will be established in 30 days. And among other things, will make public the standard gauge railway contract. You're asking about that. And which is said to have put public facilities as collateral that can be auctioned should the country fail to meet its financial obligations. And he says, yes, it will come up in the Commission for State Capture. It's a public contract and Kenyans are entitled to know exactly what were the details of the contract. He, however, said that they are not targeting the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. We are not interested in individuals. By the way, we have no problem with the outgoing president. We wish him well in his retirement. This is, of course, a conversation that he had with Sophia Wanuna that's coming out now in terms of some of those details. But I just thought it was interesting that he's actually said, we will make public the details of this contract.
This State Capture Commission, I'm not even going to wait for it until we're going to establish a commission on state capture. How many commissions have we seen? We had a commission on Goldenberg. It sat. We went through the drama, partly dragging a briefcase to KICC and showing how you can actually tuck $1 million shillings in a suitcase, how he carried that money and I don't know, took it to who. Stories. We saw these stories, Eric Kutut coming before the former central bank governor, blah, 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 blah. Justice Bosire released the Goldenberg report. It said, some people need to be investigated further. That's the
farthest it went.
Yes. After all that work of a commission, that's what we saw. Another commission, Atur Brothers. Commission. You know what happened? How did these people, who were they? How did they come? How did they get to become police officers? How did they get firearms and licensed firearms? What are they doing in the country? Commission. Headed by Philip Keruki. Nothing. Another one. George Saitoti has died. An inquest headed by a judge, a senior judge. Do we know what came out of it? Nothing. Nope. All these commissions. Now Gachagua is talking about a commission. Stories. Just don't waste our time. This is just time wastage. Complete waste of time. There are people who would argue that a commission of inquiry actually exposes. What it does is it exposes and brings to light issues that are happening in the dark. Yeah, but then to what end?
What is going to come up as a result?
What is this state capture thing that we're talking about that we're going to investigate? Yeah. What exactly? State capture. What? It's just going to be another. If they actually start it, it'll be just a moment for drama.
I just hope it's not just another declaration and that something will actually be done. I mean, because hey,
it's just another moment for drama. Let me tell you about drama that's happening in Kakamega.
Okay.
There's an acute shortage of a plant called Mondia Witei. It's a root. Mondia Witei. Commonly referred to as Mukobero.
Again? Is that English?
Mukobero. Do you know it?
No.
Have you ever come across someone who's selling some sticks Look at page 24 of the Standard. Look at that picture and you'll see. Tell me whether you've ever seen that kind of thing. Mukobero is a serious root that is sold by people. You've seen, eh?
Yes.
You've seen? Yes. Now, Simon Ondula, who is a Mukobero hawker in Kakamega town, imports his product from Uganda, and he fears that in the next few years, this antidepressant will be extinct. I've been selling Mukobero for 10 years after the collapse of Mumia Sugar Company, where I worked. We used to harvest this herb in Kakamega Forest or people's farms, but because of uncontrolled harvesting, the thing disappeared. He says Mukobero started diminishing from the forest and other natural places when the harvesting process was left to non-experts who simply uprooted everything from the ground without leaving part of the herb for regeneration. This, he says, has forced people to plant an imitation of the herb on their farms to deal with the diminishing original product. He's a 49-year-old trader, and he says what is largely sold on the streets is not a natural version of Mukobero because it lacks the original taste. People don't like it so much, forcing us to go to Uganda's Kamuli forest for the original version of the herb, which sells like hotcake. In Uganda, the harvesting is controlled. People harvest it on commercial, not domestic consumption. He says for a sack of 120 kilos of Mukobero, he buys it at 8,000 shillings from Uganda. He pays 200 bob to customs agencies at the border point to bring the commodity into the country. That is 8,200 for 120 kilograms. In Kenya, he used to buy the similar quantity at 14,000 bob. Now he's finding it much cheaper in Uganda. The renowned Mukobero trader in Kakamega, who also goes by the name Waziri wa Mapenzi, sells the 1 kilogram of the roots at 350 bob and one piece of 30 centimeters, 30 bob. He produces its powder for those who love to flavor their drinks at 100 bob per 50 grams as Mukobero seedlings for 50. Another Mukobero trader called John Atika says hawks in Western. He fears that if Uganda shuts its doors on Kenyan customers of the revered herb, kwisha maneno kitaumana.
Even that one, they can't get it here. It has to go to Uganda. Even that one.
Yeah, they have to go to Uganda because here people started just now uncontrolled harvesting. Now we can't get it locally. And you see, it's very crucial.
Important.
It's very, very crucial. There's a way you should be harvesting this thing. A researcher says that what should be harvested are the young roots that are watery in form after 2 years of maturity, leaving the old and the hard root for continuity. So now some Kenyans are just going and uprooting
the
everything.
whole thing. So now, of course, it's finished. You've eaten everything plus the seed, surely.
Then think about it. Now they're looking, what happened Mukobero? Can't find Mukobero.
Uganda.
Go to Uganda. Yeah. Wanjala says Mukobero is an aphrodisiac, not an antidepressant. That's your version, Bana.
Many would argue that it's one and the same thing. same bus.
Point is, it's a root that it's a herb that people like to consume, and it is not available now locally. People have to cross over into Uganda to purchase and bring to Kenya, which raises the cost. What can we do to save ourselves from having to import everything? Hata kitu kidogo kama Mukobero.
Surely, even that one. You have to cross the border. Even that one.
Not fair. Not fair. Keep it here for more conversations. In the next hour, we talk about EAC protocol, EAC common market tariffs, and Kenya's bilateral trade deals with the United Kingdom and other countries, and how those two are clashing. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. The family of Koitalel Arab Samoy, the supreme chief of the Nandi people, wants his head, which is believed to be in Britain, returned to Kenya. Koitalel, who led the Nandi resistance against British colonial rule, died in 1905 after he was shot by a colonial officer, Richard Henry, who had lured him to a truce meeting that never was. The family, which gathered at the Koitalel mausoleum yesterday, also wants a public apology from the British government. They further demanded a 150 billion shillings as compensation.
We therefore demand as follows. 1. A public apology from the British government to the community and affected families. 2. A total of Kenya shillings 150 billion as compensation for the losses incurred from the confiscated property. And 3. The immediate return of Koitalel Samoe head / skull so that the family and the community can enjoy peace.
The family says that the Nandi community went through both emotional and physical trauma during the colonial period.
Many Nandi suffered physical injuries, psychological and psychiatric injuries due to forceful land alienation, physical assault by colonial askaris (police and soldiers), burning of houses, confiscation of livestock, restriction into native reserves, frequent deaths and miscarriages, European diseases such as syphilis and gonorrhea, smallpox and chickenpox, detention without trial, forced labor, disruption of family lives. Some of our people were punished on Fangan Island, and all manner of cruel and degrading treatment.
President William Ruto is among world leaders who will attend the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly today. Ruto is scheduled to make his maiden presidential address at the Assembly tomorrow. After the address, he is slated to join world leaders at a reception hosted by US President Joe Biden, which will mark the end of his tour. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the session will concentrate on the confluence of crises, that is COVID-19, pandemic, climate change, among others.
20 countries are responsible for 80% of emissions. And they are also suffering the impact of record droughts, fires and floods. But climate action seems to be flatlining. If 1/3 of G20 countries was underwater today, as it could be tomorrow, perhaps they would find it easier to agree on drastic cuts to emissions.
Senators will start a 5-day induction retreat today at Sawela Lodge in Naivasha ahead of the official start of their House business next week. The 67 senators who were sworn in 2 weeks ago will, among other things, be taken through the Senate leadership and the legislative agenda, the budget process, constitutional commissions, among other things. The induction will officially be opened by Senate Speaker Amason Kingi. Senate Clerk Jeremiah Nyagenya says the induction will be an opportunity for the senators to familiarize themselves on their roles.
Things don't go wrong, they start wrong. So it's very important for us as the Secretariat of the legislative arm that we put our newly elected legislators on a proper trajectory as they begin their legislative mandate.
Among those expected to give a talk include Chief Justice Martha Koome, Treasury CS Ukuri Yatani, and the newly elected Council of Governors Chair Anne Waiguru.
We will also be looking at the relationship between the Senate and other arms of government, and we expect high-level representation from other arms of government, from the judiciary, from the executive, discussing how we can have the nature and the appropriate relations that the three arms of government ought to have to take the country forward.
A family in Rongai, Kajiado County is appealing to law-end forces in the United States to help in unraveling the mysterious disappearance of their daughter in Gillette, Wyoming County. 32-year-old Irene Gakwa, who worked as a nurse, went missing in February from her home where she used to live with her boyfriend. The dream of the 32-year-old nurse who left Kenya in 2019 in search of greener pastures and further her studies in the United States is now the family's biggest nightmare after she disappeared mysteriously in late February. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and we're looking at traffic building up in certain parts of the city. Jogoo Road started early, and we're looking at it hot and heavy then coming in from the roundabout at the City Stadium. Let's look also coming off Thika Superhighway. That has built up significantly. It just takes minutes, man. It's like a snap of the fingers, and here we are. And there's heavy traffic really then going towards the Pangani underpass, coming off of Kiambu Road, coming off Limuru Road, coming out of Westlands. We're already seeing that build up on Gitanga Road. So, watch out for that one because it gets really crazy, really fast, and it's going to spill over to James Gishuru. Are you not out yet? You might want to make the great escape before traffic hits hard. Let's take a look at what it looks like at about 7:30 or so. Right now, keep your wits about, and then let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 minutes after
This
7. How
is
you
the
doing? Good
Situation
morning.
Room,
Welcome to
the
Tuesday.
only way-
We're just getting up. It's the 20th day of September 2022. 20th. It's the day you file your returns with KRA. Remember that. Remember that? Yes. Please do. And if you haven't, please make sure that you do it by the end of day today. Otherwise, 10,000 shillings. Like that. Emenda. Make sure you file your returns. We're live on SpiceFM on KTN Home online. We live stream the show on YouTube and Facebook. And we are glad that you're tuned in this morning. We are going to have a conversation about the relationship between Kenya and our neighbors in the East African community and Kenya and our partners across the globe, specifically the United Kingdom. The day's proverb: every bird flies with its own wings. Every bird flies with its own wings. This is a proverb from Tanzania. Of course, it's translated from Swahili. Kila ndege huruka na mbawa zake. It's as simple as that. Julia says, another version of today's proverb: you have to do your own growing, no matter how tall your father was. Julia, that sounds like a direct translation of something. You have to do your own growing, no matter how tall your father was. Edgar, good morning.
Good morning.
Edgar Odari is the Executive Director of Econews Africa. He joins us now in the Situation Room. Welcome to the hot seat, Edgar.
Thank you.
Good to have you again.
Thank you.
When you hear this proverb from Tanzania, because we're talking East Africa Community Day, that's how we picked a Tanzanian proverb. Figure that.
Yeah.
How strategic.
Yeah, we do things with a plan.
Of course.
Yes,
That's
we
the
have a
way.
plan. We have a president who has a plan. So everybody here must have a plan. When you hear that proverb, what do you think?
Well, it basically means, as I interpret it as a country, we have to do our own growth, despite the fact that we are working together with other partners. We have to do our own growth.
We have to do our own heavy lifting.
Yes.
Aha.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a good thing that President Uhuru Kenyatta also embraced closely.
Yes.
And he went out into the UK, met with his counterpart, not the counterpart, but the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and they discussed how can we work together. Now with this Brexit story that has happened, how can we work together with the UK? And they signed a number of agreements. One of them was, an economic trade agreement with the UK. Tell us about that.
Well, because the UK was leaving the European Union, they thought about how do we maintain relations with most of the other partners that we trade with. And out of that came the desire to sign an economic partnership agreement with Kenya. It was supposed to be with East African Community, but the other East African Community countries had not even signed an agreement with the European Union. So they opted out of the agreement. But Kenya, given its position, decided to sign the agreement. Yes.
With the UK?
Yes.
What are the details and the contents of this agreement?
Well, it basically talks about a number of goods. It basically opens up trade in terms of liberalizing trade on a number of goods that are supposed to be traded between the two countries. So it basically says it reduces tariffs. Tariffs are basically taxes. It reduces taxes on products coming in from the UK and reduces taxes of products going into the UK.
From Kenya?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So goods coming in from the UK,
yes,
if they land at the port of Mombasa,
yes,
but their final destination is any of the landlocked East African countries, how does that impact that agreement?
That is a problem because then, we operate as a customs union. So when a good lands in a port in Dar es Salaam or a port in Mombasa, it's as if the good has landed in the territory. So the good is free to circulate within the territory of the customs union.
Okay.
So that means it's a problem in the sense that if the good has been reduced in terms of the tariff has been reduced and the good has landed in Mombasa, it's as if the good has landed in Uganda. Yes.
So a tractor that was meant to go to some farm in Burundi lands in Mombasa.
Yes.
The UK exporter expects to enjoy the benefit of the economic partnership agreement signed between Kenya and...
So a tractor that was supposed... Let me rephrase it this way.
Right.
A tractor that is supposed to go to a farm in Moiben. Not a tractor. Tractors are zero rated. Take another good iron.
Okay.
That was supposed to go to a factory in Kenya.
Okay.
Now, that good can be able to land at any place in Burundi, Uganda, or Tanzania. The challenge with that is these countries have what we call a common external tariff, which is basically to try and reduce the cheap imports coming in from outside regions.
Okay.
So when this good lands here, it's competing against the other products in the East African community. Yes.
Okay. What does that then mean for then goods going on to other countries? If it lands, because it's saying East African community, so obviously it's a common market, right? So just as you said, if it lands in Mombasa, it's just as though it landed in Uganda or if it landed in Tanzania. Now, what does that mean in terms of it going into these other countries? So if it lands in Mombasa, it can just as well go to Uganda without too much of an issue.
Yes.
Nobody's going to stop it, ask for extra tariffs, things like this.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and I think because what we are looking at now is if Kenya has an agreement with another country bilaterally that doesn't then include this brotherhood of markets in the East African region, what happens? Does it still remain the same if now you want to push that same good to the other members of the market?
The challenge with that is that it undermines the industrialization policy of the region. Because what happens is, some of these goods some of the goods under the East African community and under the Kenya-UK EPA have been zero-rated. What that means is basically they come in tax-free.
Yes.
Except under the East African community, these countries have agreed these goods are going to have a higher taxes if they are coming from outside to protect local industries.
Right.
Yeah? So when this good comes in at a zero-rated tax rate and it is competing against East African community manufacturers who have decided to give it a bit of higher taxes to be able to trade within themselves, it means that they are going to be undermined. Yes, it undermines trade within the region.
Why would Kenya sign this kind of deal? that on the one hand, we have signed locally within the East African community a trade pact that says, a pact that says we want to protect East African industries.
Yes.
And then Kenya goes and signs this deal with the UK that allows goods to come in tax-free. What is the rationale for Kenya?
There's, at the time when this agreement was being signed, we even met with the Parliamentary Committee on Trade and raised our concerns. But, first of all, maybe let me point out that the agreement that was signed was a copy-paste of another agreement. They didn't even bother to sit down and look at the nitty-gritty. They just copy-pasted another agreement, the East African Community EU Economic Partnership Agreement. So can you imagine this? The concessions that were given to 27 countries
in the
EU are the same concessions you're giving to one country. It doesn't make sense. So for me, if you ask me, the rationale would have, a more rational approach would have been to sit and negotiate a totally new agreement and go through the products line by line to determine, do we want this to be zero rated? And in any case, they should have put a clause to say the East African Community a common external tariff applies, and where it applies, the UK EPA cannot apply. But they didn't do that.
Would it be of benefit to us if we did all those things?
It would be.
How?
It would be, because if we did all those things, number one, we wouldn't be struggling now. Like you see now, the UK has woken up and said, we signed this agreement at a time when we were still negotiating the common external tariff with the EAC.
Yeah.
So the UK has woken up and say, hey guys, this animal you're calling the common external tariff cannot apply to us.
So by the time we were signing the EPA with the UK,
yes,
the common external tariff within the EAC
yes,
had not gone into effect.
No.
So EAC common external tariff comes into effect after Kenya has already signed the deal with the UK.
Yes.
And now the UK says
you can't apply the common external tariff.
Right. It's a nice problem to have, isn't it?
It was a good problem.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So I want to go back a little bit, because you're talking about going back and renegotiating. When these negotiations are happening, are these things taken into consideration, that what would benefit individual countries and then what would benefit countries as a whole? Also understanding that if the EAC benefits in one way or another, or I don't know how many now, or how many countries of them, and that individual countries benefit, is that taken into consideration over and above this kind of, good relationship you want to have with external trading partners?
It should be. It should be taken into consideration.
Over and above that.
Yes, it should be taken into consideration, because you see, our biggest market is Uganda. So for me, I'd rather get, Tononoka Steel. I'd rather get Tononoka Steel supplying their steel all the way into Uganda than have steel products coming in from the UK. Yeah? So it's more beneficial to have trade within the region, between the countries, because then that's a much bigger market for our traders to compete. But now if you have a situation where you're bringing in competition from outside the region and you're not considering the interests of local producers, then it becomes a bit difficult to understand the rationale with which some of our negotiators go into this room. And it's not that they don't know. They know these things very well. I just don't understand what happens.
They can project ahead.
Yes.
So we basically left a back door open.
Yes.
For the UK.
Yes.
As far as it is,
yes,
to actually access 300 million strong market,
yes,
within the East African community.
Certainly.
Just like that.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, on the front door, we are all bolting the door together with the other partner states of the East African community, saying UK should not be able to come, and we should protect ourselves from a giant UK manufacturer by supporting our local manufacturers.
Yes. So on the one hand, you're protecting yourself, and on the other hand, you're opening. So it's a game of chickens. You really don't know what you want to do.
How should it be?
The way it should be is, number one, first of all, in terms of negotiating, we should negotiate as a region. There is absolutely no benefit in negotiating as one country. You see, the UK is the 6th biggest economy in the world. Kenya is way below that. And you're negotiating and calling yourselves negotiating as equals. You're not equals. You're not. The better thing and the more clever thing would be you negotiate as the East African community and agree you're going to negotiate with the UK as one entity. And what you're going to apply to Uganda and Tanzania is the same thing that's going to apply to Kenya.
Right.
Yes.
That's a logical way to go.
Yes.
However, our brothers don't see the logic. That's a problem. Like you said, the EAC countries did not want, they had not signed a pact with the EU. They were not interested in this pact with the UK. So what do we do?
So there's a mechanism to do that because they call it variable geometry, that, one country can decide to go a different direction if the others are not yet ready to do that. But even application of that should follow the rules that have been set aside in the East African Customs Union Protocol. What it requires is the moment you start negotiating an agreement, you notify the Secretary General of the East African Community within 30 days. Then the SG is supposed to notify the other countries, and they're supposed to give comments to that agreement within 90 days. That was not done. It wasn't.
And that would have been an easy route.
Yes. So you notify them, and then they say, okay, if you're giving these products away, please consider products A, B, C, and D, and put this tariff because we are going to negotiate this interest in the common external tariff. Or the easier thing would have been to wait.
In those 90 days,
yes,
if you get comment, the SG has circulated this to the other member states of the East African community.
Yes.
If any of the member states actually writes a strong protest note in response to the AG, to the SG, is it binding?
It should be, especially in terms of the products. They should say, you see, we want, so for example, Tanzania can come and say, under the common external tariff, we want to apply this tariff on this product. So then Kenya should take that into consideration and say, okay, as we're negotiating with the UK, we want to put this tariff because Tanzania has an interest here. Because in any case, Tanzania has an interest in the Kenyan market, or Kenya has an interest in the Tanzanian market and vice versa. Yes.
Within the EA, and this maybe could give insight as to why then, because it seems as though, yes, there is the EAC. We're looking at common markets. We're looking at ways in which individual countries can benefit. We're also looking at ways in which the region as a whole then can benefit. But it seems as though, I think it's clearly evident that there is then still infighting amongst the brothers.
Yes.
Or a lack of a desire to want to come together. Wouldn't that have been one of the tenets upon which this market of the EAC was established in the first place? That there would be this brotherhood in terms of markets, at least on one level, to say that these negotiations, when they take place, so when Kenya is going and is having bilateral negotiations with the UK, Kenya is taking into consideration the EAC as well. Is that what we are saying? Because then what happens to your authenticity as a state? Does that then change because you're constantly considering what happens with the common market?
Like I said, our biggest market is in the region. If you look, I know we export products to the UK, and that's significant, but we have a much better approach in terms of trying to target the local market. The biggest market for Kenya is Uganda. So for me, in terms of trying to look for interests, wouldn't you want to look at the interests of your local market first before you start venturing to the other places?
So I hear you saying essentially that all of these negotiations, when now all this noise is currently being made, is that then it really shouldn't bear that much significance when it comes to the trade that Kenya will do.
No, it should. It should bear significance.
As much as that which you place on the surrounding region? Okay, let me rephrase the question.
Yes.
Should more weight then be placed on the trade negotiations that Kenya has with Uganda, for example, vis-a-vis the negotiations that would be made between Kenya and the UK?
The clever thing would be to place more emphasis on regional markets.
Okay.
Yes. It would be to place more emphasis on regional markets because they have a chance to grow. We have just opened up DRC. So it will be more clever to open up the regional market for Kenyan products as opposed to opening up the Kenyan market to external products because then they would eat into the share of the Kenyan market that the Kenyan products have in the region. Yes.
So Uganda is Kenya's biggest trade partner.
Yes.
What does that mean?
What it means is basically, well, if you look at the kind of products that we export across to any other country. Look at Kenya's external trade.
Yeah.
Uganda is the biggest export market for Kenyan products.
What do we export to Uganda?
We export manufactures, especially manufactured product, finished products. And these finished products are then consumed by the Ugandan market. Now, if we open up trade with the UK,
So manufactured products, these are goods manufactured 100% in Kenya?
Yes. Not necessarily 100%. We may be able to get intermediate goods from elsewhere, but we finish the product and export it to Uganda.
Okay.
Yes.
Transit does not count as part of exports?
No.
Goods that land in Mombasa on transit to Uganda, that is not Kenyan.
That's not Kenya's
export to Uganda.
No.
So this is basically everything that we have produced here, whether it's raw or finished.
Yes.
And mostly you're saying it's finished products going into the region.
Yes.
Now, how do we make sure that our factories are able to produce more and be more efficient in production?
The first thing you do is you lock out competition from outside. Yes. You lock out competition from outside. So you sit down and say, okay, there's a number of tariff lines. Tariff lines are basically product lines of what needs to be liberalized. You lock out those lines and say, for all these products, I am not going to allow products to come in from outside. And if they come in, I will apply the East African Community Common External Tariff. That way, your manufacturers have some sort of safety net to say that when products come in from outside, they're going to, first of all, be taxed at a higher rate than local products. That way, when those products, because they're heavily subsidized when they come in from countries like the UK. So when you tax them higher, they'll have to sell at a rate that is favorable to Kenyan exporters.
Okay.
Yes.
But then also, locally, we are relying heavily on raw material that is either locally produced, coming from the region, or coming from outside the region.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
So that then we're able to finish and export to Uganda and the other countries in the East Africa community.
So
does this EPA include raw material coming in from the UK so that it can be processed in Kenyan factories?
So if you look at the common external tariff, it used to have 3 bands. Now I think they've made it 4 bands. The first band was intermediate products, so primary product that you're using to add value in your industries, which the rate was about 65.4%, if I'm not wrong. So there's already a provision to allow in raw materials to be used in factories to be able to produce goods, and the rate was about 65.4%. Yes.
Second band?
Second band was, I'm not sure, it was about 75%. Yes.
And what kind of goods are these?
These are products that have been added value extensively beyond the 65.4%.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically we are saying if it's raw material that can come and then it's processed within Kenyan factories, it's okay.
Yes.
Or within the factories within the East African community, that's fine.
That's fine.
But when you start processing,
then the tariffs
if there's
go
some
up.
value addition, then the tariff goes up.
Yes.
Logic to lock out
competition
for local manufacturers.
Yes.
So again, I ask, what was the logic used by our government, very experienced people, when they were discussing this deal with the UK? In fact, let's start this question from this point. Do you see sense in President Uhuru Kenyatta having a sit down with former President Uhuru, having a sit down with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and saying, all right, Brexit has happened. How do we take advantage of one another? Was there a sense in that?
There was sense.
The beginning of that conversation.
The UK is a big market for Kenya, so there was sense in that.
There was sense in that.
Yes.
Higher. Second sense, in the negotiations.
Yes.
Do you see sense in what they did?
No.
Why?
What do you think they were thinking of? When you try to look back and say, maybe this was the thinking of, then you also have contact with these people. What is it that they were considering?
So there was sense in the sense to negotiate an agreement with the UK. What does not make sense is the way the agreement was negotiated. You know, it's one thing to say you're negotiating an agreement, but you don't just copy-paste an entire agreement and say, okay, we've negotiated. What is that or even? I mean, when you're negotiating and you're saying, okay, let me just copy-paste this agreement and hammer it and say, I mean, I understand there was urgency in terms of negotiating with the UK.
Yeah.
But it does, I mean, if you really want to burn the midnight oil, they could have just sat down, negotiated a totally new agreement, but they sat down and copy-pasted an agreement with the EU.
Do you think we had leverage at that point? As
Yes, we
Kenya,
did.
Kenya have leverage?
We did.
At the negotiating table.
We did.
And could Kenya have been a little bit more bullish in its argument to say, look here, and I think maybe, I know we're going into a break in a minute and we can come back and look at this, but I think this is the problem. That when you're actually at the table, I mean, because you never really get there, finally at the table, what is discussed at the table to entrench that there will be benefit on the side of those who are already getting the shorter end of the stick. And I think if those things are not happening at the manner in which they ought to, that's why we continue finding, especially countries on this other side of the G, suffering these things. And so why is it that these negotiations do not happen in the manner in which they ought to?
I think the reason is, part of the reason is just lack of foresight. I would say lack of foresight. Because for me, when you're negotiating, the UK and the EU are totally different entities. So for you to copy-paste one agreement and say it applies to the other, when the concessions that were given to 27 countries, like I said, you're giving the same concessions to one country with no benefit in terms of a bigger market. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. So for me, the way the negotiations are being carried out, at the very least, it would have called for people to sit down and hammer out a totally new agreement. Yes.
Yeah. There was ground for that.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. Edgar Odari is our guest this morning. He is the Executive Director of Econews Africa. Tell us about Econews Africa, by the way, briefly, just before you take this break.
Yes. So Econews Africa is a non-governmental organization that works to bridge the information gaps between various stakeholders. So we look at government, we look at private sector, we look at citizens. So in our case, there's information asymmetry between these entities in terms of decision making, especially on economic decisions. So what we try to do is basically to try and limit that information gap by providing information to the citizens to be able to enable them to make informed decisions.
Okay.
Yes.
He's here in the studio with us discussing the little kind of a quagmire that we're finding ourselves in. So Kenya signed an economic partnership agreement with the UK, and it was ratified even in Parliament in 2021, right?
Yes.
And then a couple of months later, the East African Community's Common External Tariff came into effect. Now, what that means is that while the Common External Tariff by the EAC says we shall lock out some goods coming in from areas outside the EAC, our economic partnership agreement with the UK says some goods can come in from the UK through Kenya. And then they'll find their way into the market. Bit of a pickle. Showmax.com.
Showmax.com, 760 shillings. I'll start with the numbers. And for at least 760 shillings, you can have access to great programming. The programming that you ought to be watching now is County 49. It's the fictional county of Boatele, where there are many government intrigues happening. The people have decided to take things into their own hands and say, leadership for us, by us, the way we want it. County 49 is showing on Showmax. Another episode drops hot this week by Thursday or so you want to watch and follow that story.
If you've watched it, by the way, let us know what you think about it. Some of your favorite characters in this series, County 49. Let us know on SpiceFM KE, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If I look at the Premier League table, Manchester City is on top. Arsenal, number 2 in the table. Absolutely. How did Brentford get to number 3 in the Premier League table? They beat us like Burukenge.
Sugar and spice. What's your love language, French?
My love language is I want to be left alone.
What can't you compromise on?
Quality time and acts of service. Words of affirmation tutapata hata kanisani.
We do this
11 to 3 p.m. Monday to Friday. DJ Absolute and
Yolanda Mulwa
on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 15. The sun is up at 14 in Nakuru, highs of 25 and lows of 13. It's cloudy at 15 in Nyeri, highs of 23, and we'll see highs of 24 in a sunny Eldoret at 13. Light rain continues in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 23. It's also raining at 25 in Malindi. It'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 24. 18 degrees and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 28 in Kakamega, where it is sunny at 17. 19 and partly sunny in Kampala, highs of 29 and highs of 29 as well in a mostly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 22. It's 9 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 22, and we'll see highs of 29 in a rainy Lagos at 24. It's 24 and partly cloudy in Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 23. There's a little bit of traffic on Outer Ring. It's heading towards on North Airport Road, heading towards Outer Ring. It's going to touch on traffic that's coming off Manyanja Road as well as Kangunda Road this morning, and a little bit coming off of Jogo Road. Whatever's happening on the Thika Superhighway, you're going to need a lot of patience for it because it's bumper to bumper all the way through to the CBD. Kiambu in and outbound traffic is bumper to bumper, and we're seeing the same thing happening on Limuru Road this morning. There it is, Ring Road Western starting to pile up, as is James Gishuru, just past that drift heading over to Waiyaki Way. You want to watch out for that. You can use the Red Hill Link Road. There's a lot of business happening in this whole Thigiri, Gigiri, Kitisuru area, and that's traffic then that's feeding onto Limuru Road, moving really slowly this morning. We are in traffic hour proper. Let's know what's going on where you are. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Spice FM, KTN home and online with Edgar Odari from Econews Africa. We are talking about the Kenya's trade pact with the UK, as well as Kenya's agreements within the East African community. So Edgar, you've basically taken us through where we are finding ourselves now, which is the UK says this new thing called the East African Common External Tariff should not apply to goods coming from the UK into Kenya. And yet the Common External Tariff within the EAC says all goods coming into Kenya, Uganda, wherever within the EAC should be subjected to this tariff. So now that we find ourselves here, what next? What are the next steps?
Well, no agreement is cast in stone. When this agreement was being negotiated, I remember a number of parliamentarians were really concerned about what was going to happen. And they put in a clause in terms of the government would have to be reporting to Parliament every year on processes of implementing the agreement and challenges in terms of implementing the agreement. This clause was inserted at the last minute because Parliament was concerned that this agreement would go as is and would cause problems for the country. So that's the time now to use that clause. And thank God the parliamentarians actually saw the sense in that. It might be good to now wake up and say, hey, wait a minute, let's sit and remove all the products where the common external tariff is supposed to apply.
When do the first 2 years lapse?
Not the first 2 years. They said annually.
So it's annually?
It's annually.
Okay.
They're supposed to report annually. Yes.
And then, so report annually and subject to review annually?
Yes.
Right. What would you advise parliamentarians to do? We have a new parliament, the 13th parliament.
The best thing for Parliament to do now would be to now sit and sift through those tariff lines. And any tariff lines that offends the spirit of the common external tariff should be removed from that agreement.
Would it be beneficial or not?
It will be beneficial because local industries are going to suffer for it. Local industries are going to suffer for it in the sense that they are going to face stiff competition of cheap subsidized products coming in from look at this, for example. Energy in the UK is much cheaper than energy locally. So when you have steel producers importing into the region, even in terms of energy alone. Forget about the other benefits in terms of subsidies that they get from their government. Even in terms of energy alone, they are beating you hands down. So they can be able to bring in their products at a much cheaper rate and be able to compete within the region. Now, if you have Tononoka still sending products to Uganda, that means the Uganda exporter can be able to say, hey, you know what? Let me get the UK steel. And that will mean
import in Uganda.
Yes. They'll export to Uganda and deny Tononoka steel the market, for example.
Okay, let's look on the other side.
Yes.
Because clear. The case is made. I don't think you need to dig deeper to see the benefit of then fighting for this common market on this side. Also, in terms of elevating economies within this East African market.
Yes.
What benefit? Because then to kind of understand why the negotiations were made in the manner in which they were, what would it benefit Kenya to have? Because this is what we're talking about right now. That this negotiation or this agreement that currently is held with the UK does just that. That you are allowing product essentially into the market that could be cheaper, and that you are denying a domiciled market the opportunity to thrive. Why would you have such an agreement? Kenya, the UK, Uganda, the UK, Tanzania, the UK, and deny? What benefit would it be to have an agreement crafted in that manner?
An agreement with the UK?
Yes. Why would you want to do that?
The UK is an export market for our horticultural products. We export a lot of flowers. We export tea and other primary commodities to the UK.
Yes.
So because of that, the UK is an important market. Now, what you do with such a market is, yes, you give them access to your market, but you don't consider everything. Yeah? You can be able to give them, it's actually makes sense. It's entirely possible to have a situation where the UK is able to gain access to Kenyan market without necessarily offending the spirit of the East African Community Customs Union. Yes.
So, again, taking this just a step further, the UK themselves, and we're just using them as an example because this is what is on the table right now.
Yep.
The UK themselves also have trade negotiations with other countries.
Yes.
And we can look into those and get the details
Yes.
for sure, because such things are made public.
Yes.
Excuse me. Do they protect their local industries when they are making these trade negotiations?
You wouldn't want to imagine. They protect their local industry as if their life depends on it, because it does. Now, what usually happens with the these negotiations is you have the industry coming together and saying, hey, open up this market for us, close this product for us. And they have done that extensively for their market. And that's part of the reason why they actually, Brexit is based on that. They wanted to protect their markets from external interference in terms of, they tell you, if you bring in an orange, it must be this round and this color and whatnot. They wanted to protect their market. Now, when we were negotiating this agreement with the UK, manufacturers came. Can you imagine they even liberalized waste paper? That you can be able to get waste paper coming in from the UK to come in. When we have, I think it's, what family is this? The Rai family.
The Rai family.
Which is basically, and he was there, by the way. He was there, by the way, protesting that kind of
so we've opened up our markets to all types of goods.
All types of, including waste paper.
If we were to renegotiate this, and then, of course, it's quid pro quo, what are we risking? If we say, all right, so we want to renegotiate, you see, we've got the East African Common External Tariff, blah, 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 so let's relook at this trade deal we have with you.
Yes.
What is it that we are likely to lose? And what should we guard against losing?
What we guard against losing is losing access to the UK market, except the amount of trading, because you see, the UK did this with the idea that it would eventually be able to gain access to the EAC market. So we still have a bit of leverage to take us forward. And if you look at the risk, I don't think the UK would wake up to an extent and close out the entire market to Kenya because we've taken out a few products that are part of our common internal tariff.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Now that we operated this way, selfishly, Kenya went ahead and signed a deal with the UK, man, as our brothers and sisters in the region.
Yeah.
Is it possible, or would it be beneficial for any of the other countries, let's say Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, to go and sign their own trade agreements with the UK, where the UK then breaks up our leverage? You know, that thing of saying, oh, we're giving you access into the East African common market. Can they do a divide and rule and start seeking to negotiate individually with the other countries? And would it be, if you are the president of Rwanda or Burundi or Tanzania, would you pursue such a deal?
What this agreement has done is it has a grandfather clause, in the sense that it cleverly talks about the other East African countries, so that at the time when the East African countries want to negotiate, they are bound. They'll be told, okay, you can't negotiate a separate agreement. Just come into this agreement with Kenya and let's have it as one region. Yes.
So we have already taken that. We've locked that side.
We've locked that side
and said anybody else who wants to negotiate with the UK, you've got to
sign on to
get onto this one.
Yes.
Join onto this one.
Yes.
So then we have leverage.
We have leverage.
Okay.
We have leverage for sure.
So then, what is it? Because there's always is that thing that you need to then cross over to make sure that you are actually now swimming freely or swimming well, at the very least.
Yes.
What is it? What is it that then needs to happen to break this? Because it doesn't matter. Look, and I'm sure if you look across the continent, look at SADC, look at COMESA, look at ECOWAS, look at the EAC, you will have that problem. Even when you have regional trading blocks, and then there's an external, and I'm talking ex-Africa, if there's an external partner, you will always find, and I'm still on that, I guess that's a sticking point, you will always find that there is something that guarantees that we on this side of the pond get the shorter end of the stick. Do we have negotiation problems? It definitely is not policy issues, because we probably have some of the greatest minds who are even going and to help make these decisions on the other side. Is it negotiation? Do we get into the room and then get nervous? Because, I mean, it's down to the wire. Do we copy-paste an agreement, they copy-paste an agreement, and we read it and we say, oh, jolly good, that's great, let's go ahead with it. What happens? Or what needs to happen? Because this is not just an EAC problem. It's a COMESA problem. It's a SADC problem. It's an ECOWAS problem.
Yes.
What is the problem?
The problem that we have is who we take into the negotiation room. The moment you have an agreement like that and you're saying, okay, the PS is the negotiating person, the PS deals with administrative issues at that level. What you need to do is get the real hard negotiators, the technocrats, get them into the room and tell them, okay, guys, whatever you do, hammer out an agreement that's in my interest. But the moment you say that, you have the chief negotiator being the permanent secretary, Ministry of Trade, this person comes in and, first of all, they may not have the luxury. They're balancing so many issues at the same time. They may not have time to start going through a list of 1,000+ products.
Come on, Edgar. It's not like it's just the PS who walks into the room and he's not accompanied, or she's not accompanied by the technocrats that we're talking about. It's not like the PS goes in there without having received a brief from the officials, or even coming out of the meeting and saying, okay, so this is what they are offering, so what is our next step? I don't imagine that it's just a one person getting into a room and negotiating a deal for the country.
The point I'm trying to make is that decisions at that level are carried out by the PS. Yeah,
as they should. I mean, it's a senior most.
Yes.
You don't want a junior officer to go and sign a deal on behalf of the country.
Junior officer doesn't sign a deal. Let me tell you how China does. China comes into a room and they come in with a number of negotiators.
Okay.
And these young guys, the lower cadre guys, they're the ones who are playing hardball with you. And by the time they get to that person who is making the final decision...
So the final decision maker is just quiet.
They don't even talk.
He's a good cop.
He's the good cop. So by the time, when this person wakes up and tells you, no, we can't negotiate this, unless they're so sure about what they're not going to concede, that they are the ones who are telling you we are not going to concede on this level. And that has happened at the WTO level when they're negotiating with the US. Those are the junior guys who come in and negotiate. By the time it's getting to the main guy who's coming to tell you, oh, by the way, we can change this, believe you me, you've sweated.
So in the case of Kenya, let's say, and the UK, this particular example.
Yes.
So we send our delegation headed by the Principal Secretary for Trade, right?
Yes.
And we have our technical people alongside the PS.
Yes.
Who comes into the room from the UK?
Negotiators. The
Led by
technocrats.
Who's the head of delegation?
Head of delegation, I think, would be the Secretary for Trade.
Okay.
Yes. But it is the negotiators who are doing the actual work.
They're the ones who are doing the talking. And in our case, our negotiators are not doing the work.
At that level, when the Kenya is meeting the UK, it is the PS talking. It is the PS talking, not the other negotiators. Because what they've done, they've concluded everything and given the PS, and then the PS is the one to... yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they don't have any input as those guys are bringing their input.
No.
So it's basically how we are gaming our game.
You know, our goose is cooked if we decide, you know, at that level, if you empower these junior officers, and let me tell you, it's not for lack of expertise. Ministry of Trade has people who know what they're doing. It's just that at that level, they tell you, no, we are deferring this decision to the political level. And they are fond of saying that. We are deferring it to political level. And political level is just a question of now you're having the senior honchos coming in to say, okay, let's agree because we really need that market.
Okay.
Yes.
And the senior honcho here is coming to basically push through because the CEO of the country has said we need this deal.
Yes. And that's
of course,
the
the
unfortunate
CEO
thing.
is not
You're
looking
told,
at the details. He's just saying we need a deal with the UK.
You're given the tail end of, there's a funny, let me try to introduce an aspect of it. And that is where I think lawyers come in. There's a rich man who really wanted to understand the answer to 1 + 1. So he goes to a mathematician and asks him, what is 1 + 1? The mathematician says, before I tell you the answer, you have to tell me, is it base 0, base 1? He says, useless guy, I'm not going to listen to you. He goes to a philosopher and asks him, give me the perfect answer because you're a clever guy. Give me the answer to 1 + 1. Yeah. The guy says, well, before I give you the answer, we first of all have to understand the concept of oneness. What is in one?
What is one?
So he goes to a lawyer and asks him, so what is 1 + 1? The lawyer says, what do you want us to make it? Yeah? So I think the challenge that we have is we start from the fact that we need a legal agreement and say, we need an agreement.
Yeah.
So we are starting to answer these questions from the legal standpoint in terms of we need an agreement.
We cannot walk out of this room without an agreement.
And that is a problem.
All right.
You need to, first of all, ask these other questions so that you can be able to move to this other point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I think there's certain things that we've established. And I really, as I think about this and I think about development and trade, then moving further on the continent, that there's certain things that then need to happen. And it seems to need to be a bullish approach.
Yes.
Not snobbish, but a bullish approach too. Because when countries on the other side are having these negotiations, as you've said, they are very sure that their markets are protected. They're very sure that their interests are protected. Even when having a polite conversation, you will be very aware that for all intents and purposes, in as much as they want to foster trade with you as a trade partner, they are heavily vested in the protection of their markets, of their industries. And I'm thinking that... I'm convinced 100% that if not that or a better approach by this other side needs to be carried out. Like you said, it's incomparable. Where is Kenya on the list? If we're looking at UK at 6, where is Uganda on the list? Where is Rwanda on the list? And if you're going to climb up on that list, whoever made the list, then it is clear that there are certain things that need to be done. If you're going to make sure that Tononoka steel, for example, is widely used in the region until it becomes something that can then be ex-regional and then ex-continental, is this not then where it begins? To be sure that, hold on a minute, this is great that you have this, but I'm making sure that we use this on this side first before we can then now to begin to move out.
Yes.
To me, it must be a deliberate action.
Yes.
At the risk of not being so, chummy with your ex-Africa partners.
Yes. It will take deliberate action on the part of governments. You need to look at... So, why do you think the UK is so interested in the regional market? They're looking at a big market, and you've just recently admitted DRC into it.
Yes.
So they're looking and thinking, you know what? By the way, I need to conclude a deal with these guys and lock in the market. So if you just wake up and say, you know what, I need to consolidate my market first before I even get to the point of trying to negotiate with external partners. And that's why we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Yeah. It tries to consolidate the regional market. Now, can you imagine you've not been able to lock in the EAC market because you negotiated an agreement with the UK.
Yeah.
Then you are not even able to take advantage of the African market because you still have products coming in from the UK that are competing for you to be able to access the other markets. So it's a market of 54 countries. Isn't it better to consolidate a market of 54 countries as opposed to 27?
Sure.
Yes.
That's true. Andrew says, the EAC was revived with great fanfare and expense more than 20 years ago and has even expanded membership to include failed states, etc. What tangible benefits have been achieved to justify all this time spent talking about future opportunities?
You know, it's possible to be pessimistic about the dream. But you know what? People forget. You may call them failed states. Are they failed markets? They are not. They are not failed markets.
They are not.
DRC, for all its troubles, by the way, DRC is a perfect market for most of these European countries. So at what point do they decide it's a failed state, and at what point do they decide, you know what, I need to take my products there? They still take their products there.
It can't really be a failed state if you're still doing some kind of negotiation with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's a lot of deals happening. Chris agrees. I think we're having this conversation in reverse. My humble opinion is we should first look inwards and come up with trade agreements as the EAC, and this is what you are arguing this morning. So the rest of the world does not look at Kenya without looking at EAC.
That's the point. That, you look, if we are saying the customs union makes us one single market, why can't we also negotiate as one single market? Because can you imagine the leverage you would have if you bring Tanzania, Uganda, DRC, and everyone else onto the market and say, okay, we're negotiating as one block.
300 million strong market.
Yes. And we are not going to give you this deal. We are going to give you this other one. They'll still come.
Absolutely.
They'll come.
All right. Edgar, thank you very much for joining us today.
Okay.
We appreciate your coming here. We appreciate your presence and all the good work that you're doing at Eco News Africa. This Sunday, we are all going to the race course.
Okay.
Because the 50th edition of the Africa Concours d'Elegance is taking place. You know the concours?
Yes.
So she's dressing in a big hat.
It's red.
I am in red. I'm dressing like Ladama Olekina, Masai Shuka.
Yes.
So decide how you're coming. Can't just come at you like that. You can do shorts or whatever. You decide.
I'll come with my African regalia.
Yes. All roads leading to the race course this Sunday for the Concours d'Elegance. And that's a conversation we'll be having in the next hour. We'll be having the leader of the Alfa Romeo Club. You know, these guys have been organizing this event every year for the last 49, now the 50th year. And he'll be here to tell us what they've been doing, why they decided to start this, and the benefits of this, and also what we should look out for this Sunday. Edgar Odari is the executive director of Eco News Africa. He's been our guest this morning. Come again soon, Edgar. Okay. This time looking at the opportunities, and let's say even talking about how we have gained. You can answer Andrew next time.
Yes.
By showing him what the benefits have been over the last 20 years since the revival of the East African community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep
it here for more conversations. Coming up in the next hour, we're still live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and on YouTube and Facebook. Someone is asking what the frequencies around the country. I'll tell you the frequencies soon after the news. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie. Wangari, with the incoming government expected to create a task force to review the competency-based curriculum. Education CS George Magoha has come out to defend the curriculum. Magoha, who was speaking during the official opening ceremony of the Kenya Music Festival in Kisumu yesterday, said the current environment is radically different from what the 844 system of education was created to respond to. He wanted to say that the 844 system of education had outlived its usefulness.
This is actually the way to go, so that when a child leaves school in after Form 4, you don't have to be saying, oh, I passed to go to university, so that I get a certificate, so that I stay for 20 years, so that I can get a job.
The family of Koitalel Arab Samoei, the supreme chief of the Nandi people, want a public apology and compensation from the United Kingdom government for his death. Koitalel, who led the Nandi resistance against British colonial rule, died in 1905 after he was shot by a colonial officer, Richard Henry, who had lured him to a truce meeting that never was. The family, which gathered at the Koitalel mausoleum yesterday, also want Koitalel's head, which is believed to be in Britain, brought back to Kenya.
We therefore demand as follows. 1. A public apology from the British government to the community and affected families. 2. A total of Kenya shillings 150 billion as compensation for the losses incurred from the confiscated property. And 3. The immediate return of Koitalel Samoei head / skull, so that the family and the community can enjoy peace.
The family says that the Nandi community went through emotional and physical trauma during the colonial period.
Many Nandi suffered physical injuries, psychological and psychiatric injuries due to forceful land alienation, physical assault by colonial askaris (police and soldiers), burning of houses, confiscation of livestock, restriction into native reserves, frequent deaths and miscarriages, European diseases such as syphilis and gonorrhea, smallpox and chickenpox, detention without trial, forced labor, disruption of family lives. Some of our people were punished on Fangan Island, and all manner of cruel and degrading treatment.
President William Ruto is scheduled to make his maiden presidential address at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly tomorrow. He's expected to arrive in New York following Queen Elizabeth II funeral yesterday. After the address, he's slated to join world leaders at a reception hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden, which will mark the end of his tour. U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the session will concentrate on the confluences of crises, that is COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, among other issues.
20 countries are responsible for 80% of emissions. And they are also suffering the impact of record droughts, fires and floods. But climate action seems to be flatlining. If 1/3 of G20 countries was underwater today, as it could be tomorrow, perhaps they would find it easier to agree on drastic cuts to emissions.
Ruto will also hold bilateral talks with several heads of state and government on the sidelines of the annual UN meeting. Now, a family in Rungai, Kajiado County is appealing to law enforcers in the United States to help in unraveling the mysterious disappearance of their daughter in Gillette, Warming County. 32-year-old Irene Gakwa, who worked as a nurse, went missing in February from her home where she used to live with her boyfriend. The dream of the 32-year-old nurse, who left Kenya in 2019 in search of greener pastures and further her studies in the United States, is now the family's biggest nightmare after she disappeared mysteriously in late February. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, into traffic hour proper, and this is where we see traffic in most parts of the city. Looking at what's going on Airport Road, it's now going, North Airport Road rather, going on to Outer Ring. We're looking at Likoni, Jogo Road, Lunga, Lusaka, all of that, then spilling over towards that Likoni interchange on the Southern Bypass. That is not too crazy, but industrial area is a mess. We're also looking at Gong Road, also quite packed coming in from Naivasha Road out then towards Gitanga Road. Gitanga is moving really slowly and it's going to connect with James Gishuru, which is heavy. Is there such a thing as heavy bumper to bumper? Well, that's what's going on James Gishuru. It's also heavy on Waiyaki Way going into the city. Then it's going to meet with Ring Road Westlands. All of this coming out towards Wangari Maathai. Absolute madness. Limuru Road is in the belly of Gigiri, and traffic coming out of Kiambu Road is joining with traffic coming off the Thika Superhighway. It's traffic and it's crazy this Tuesday morning. You're going to sit in it for some time if you didn't leave early, and the sun is coming up, so those are good tidings. Let's just see what happens in about half hour or so, and let's try to keep it accident free. Shall we do it? Let's do it. Talk to us. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 8. Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday. If you're just tuning in or you're just getting up, it's the 20th day of September 2022. Kerry reminds you, it's the day for filing the returns. Yes. And we'll be talking about the event on Sunday, and this is the 50th edition of the Africa Conco de Lagons, at the racecourse. You know, my regalia, my Maasai regalia has all the beads and all,
You have it?
Wewe ngoja.
This one.
And the Nyamoga.
For that alone.
And the Nyamoga.
For that, it's called a what?
They are color shoes.
Oh, okay. For that alone, that one, I'll see that my day would have been made.
Yeah.
Then now add the vehicles and all the other activity. I mean, day made.
Bas. Before we welcome our guest, who's the chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club, let's hear the day's proverb. It's from Tanzania. Every bird flies with its own wings. Every bird flies with its own wings. Kunatio, it borrows wings.
Can I use yours for the day?
I use them for the day, and then
if I destroy them or get them wet, then I just return them to you.
Yep. Your own. Use your own. Titus Mutai says, I can't get your frequencies in Kericho. I'm searching, but I can't get the Kisumu and Nakuru frequency. Okay. So our frequencies across the country on SpiceFM. Nairobi, 94.4. Nakuru is 96.0, 90.9 in Nyeri. Kisumu is 102.5. Malindi is 97.7. Mombasa is 87.9. Eldoret is 96.7. Titus, just try the Kisumu and Nakuru frequency. 102.5 in Kisumu and the Nakuru frequency 96.0. And you'll tell us whether any of those is working. If not, let me know. I'll tell the person who needs to know, and then they'll do what they need to do. Peter Wandai is the chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
It's a very good morning and good to have you on the show. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
First of all, I like the way you spell your name. Wandai with a Y without a Y, without an I. So looked at it earlier and was like, Peter, one day.
Yeah, it's not siku moja.
It's not siku moja.
It is Wandai.
It is Wandai.
Yes.
Peter Wandai.
Yes.
The Alfa Romeo Owners Club. Tell us about this club.
Well, the Alfa Romeo Owners Club is a motoring club that was founded back in 1970. So it's one of the oldest motoring clubs in this country. I think probably only second oldest to the East African Motorsports Club. And it is basically a grouping of Alfa Romeo enthusiasts. If you know the Alfa Romeo brand, it's an Italian brand. It is a brand that is slightly over 110 years old now. Made its mark on the racing circuits of Europe in the 1930s. And Alfa Romeo is quite an understated brand in the sense that you don't see too many Alfa Romeos like you see other European models like Volkswagen, Mercedes, Audi, BMW. But Alfa Romeo actually pioneered the culture of motoring clubs way back. And I think Alfa Romeo has the biggest number of motor owners clubs around the world. So in this part of the world, actually until fairly recently, a couple of years ago, the only owners club that you could talk about was the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. So the club is 52 years old now, having been founded in 1970. The first meeting was held at the terrace of the Norfolk Hotel. Yeah, so that's a brief history of the club.
So basically, the owners of the Alfa Romeo car are, how would you describe them? In terms of their personality, their character.
The owners of Alfa Romeo cars are usually people who are very passionate about their cars and passionate about motoring in general. Sporty, they've got a sporty character, sporty in the sense of motorsports. You know, Jeremy Clarkson famously remarked that you are never a petrol head until you've driven an Alfa Romeo. So I think that sums up the personality of Alfa Romeo owners. These are real petrol heads.
Are they still making these cars?
Oh yes, they are. We've got some very interesting models right now in the market. I think the best known model now is the Alfa Romeo Giulia, which went into production from around 2007. It has won European Car of the Year award several times, and it's given the BMW 3 Series and the Mercedes C-Class and the Audi A4 a run for their money. Those are some of the cars in its class that it competes with. And then Alfa Romeo is also producing SUVs now. You've got the Stelvio, which is doing very well in Europe. Unfortunately, we don't have a dealer in Kenya, so you don't see these cars on Kenyan roads. But they're doing very well in other countries.
So why don't we have dealership in Kenya? I mean, like you said, the oldest, or one of the oldest motor clubs in the country. It has consistently had presence in the country in terms of the owners of the car. Why not a dealership, even just owned by the owners club?
Well, first of all, the owners club would not run a dealership. We're not a commercial entity. We're just a fan club. But when it comes to running a dealership, really it's a commercial thing. And most people who are in the motor industry who would want to run a dealership look at the numbers and the return on investment. It's not a very cheap affair to operate a dealership. You've got to guarantee the brand that you are marketing of a certain volume. Now, Alfa Romeo does not produce very many cars. Just to give you some statistics, for example, before they produced the Giulia in 2007, Alfa Romeo was producing hardly 75,000 cars a year. If you compare that with, let's say, Toyota, one single model of a Toyota produces hundreds of thousands in a year. So, but that was scaled up after the production of the Giulia and the Stelvio and the Tonale, which are some of the latest models now. Production has been scaled up to about 500,000 cars in a year. It's still not a very big number. So some of the dealerships, some of the business people who want to run dealerships look at this market and ask themselves, how many cars are they able to sell in a year? But having said that, we came very close to getting a dealership in this country around 2017, 2018. I will not name some of the existing dealers in the market who wanted to take up the brand, but there were concerted efforts by some of the existing dealers to take up the brand. But as you know, the motoring industry lately has seen a lot of games of musical chairs. So things turned around, and by the end of 2019, interests were changing, and new players were coming in who wanted to take the brand. And then COVID happened. And as they say, It disrupted our lives, and we're just coming out of it. So I'm still hopeful that we will get a dealer soon.
Sure. Is it? Would you describe it as a niche product, as almost one that would teeter on the edge of luxury?
I wouldn't really call it a niche product. Alfa Romeo, a niche brand. Some people like to say that Alfa Romeo is a poor man's Ferrari. Because both Ferrari and Alfa Romeo came from the same stable, highly trained engineers, but it doesn't cost you what you'd pay for a Ferrari. In fact, Alfa Romeos are cheaper than BMWs and Mercedes, so it's not really a niche brand. It's not a luxurious brand. It is just it's an average brand, I would say. Yeah.
So, obviously looking at how this has come, then why or what is it then about luxury, vintage, classic vehicles, before we even go as to why Concours was established, what is it about vintage, classic, luxury vehicles then that appeals to the mind of people that you want to then bring it out, shine it up, tune it up for that day when people can come and look and see what cars of then days used to do and what they can do today?
Well, I want to take the word luxury from out of that statement. The thing is, classic and vintage car collection is a passion, just like you've got some people collecting art, pieces of art and all that, And, cars are artistic objects, over the years, cars have been produced that look and appeal to different minds in different ways. And what we try to do basically is to in a way we are trying to offer an opportunity for people to look back and see these are the models of cars that have formed the history of the automobile. So it's kind of like nurturing this automobile history. Yeah.
So when the first Concours started 50 years ago, was it only for Alfa Romeo cars, or did it have other models of cars as well?
Yes, it was actually a purely Alfa Romeo affair, and that was in 1971. And the first Concorde Elegance was held in celebration of the first anniversary of the establishment of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. When the club turned 1 year old, the members sat down and asked themselves, what can we do to celebrate this milestone? And an idea came that why not host a beauty pageant of cars, the Concorde Elegance. So it was open only to Alfa Romeo cars. And the members then thought, well, we'll be lucky if we get 10 Alfa Romeos on parade. And surprise, surprise, there were upwards of 15. And they thought, well...
All from within the country?
Oh, yes, all from within the country. Actually...
And at that time, they were looking at they were still looking at the old vehicles. Nobody brought...
No, not really.
A recent model to that Concours.
What actually happened the first Concours? Let me take you back a little bit in the history of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. There's a gentleman who set up a dealership of Alfa Romeos back in the late 60s. And when he sold his 100th Alfa Romeo, he thought, let me celebrate these customers of mine.
Right.
So he invited them to the terrace of the Norfolk, and that celebration conceived the idea of forming an Alfa Romeo Owners Club. So the first Concorde Elegance was actually open to Alfa Romeos, and most of them were not that old. They're cars which had been sold in the preceding couple of years.
You're right.
So they were really not old machines.
So looking at this affair, it's... When we, of course, vintage, people have tuned up the vehicles that they have before. People want to be able to come and showcase. So beyond the showcase, what is it really that people can then come in and say, well, have a look at this? Or is it to look at what is available, what used to be, what people used to drive then? So it's like going into an art gallery and looking at the pieces on exhibit. This is art in itself. with these vehicles, classic or vintage, with these vehicles coming out and seeing then, what's available. So would you describe it as a day of walking through a giant vehicle exhibition per se?
Yes, I think you've described it quite aptly. It's almost like walking into a big motor museum and seeing cars from a bygone era. But beyond the cars and motorcycles as well, because remember the Concours d'Elegance is not just about vintage and classic cars. We also have motorcycles on parade, but beyond these vintage and classic cars, we also have other attractions, including new models, because we have the auto trade, what we call the Auto Expo section of the Concours. Yeah.
When you look at the growth of the Concours for the last 50 years, since now that first one in 1971, it was purely Alfa Romeo cars and Alfa Romeo owners just coming to spend an afternoon together. At what point did it start now opening up to, okay, other models, if you've got a classic car, vintage car, just come and bring your car and let's see the vehicle?
Yeah, so the first 10 years were exclusive to Alfa Romeo cars alone. But after those 10 years, with the growth of the event, an idea came that why don't we open this up to other makes and models of cars. So from the 11th year, other makes and models were allowed. And several years later, motorcycles were also allowed. So this has seen, this led to the growth of the event. And every year, really, it's scaling up. The first event was held somewhere along Thika Road at what was then the Spread Eagle Hotel, the location of the present-day Safari Park Hotel. And the event was held there a couple of years, and then it moved to Embakasi Racing Circuit, just off Mombasa Road, which is roughly where you now have the inland container depot. And the event continued being staged there for quite a number of years until, I think, 1987, when the ownership of the land around there changed. The government changed the usage of the land. So the motor racing circuit was edged out to give way to industrial developments. So that is when the event moved to the Nairobi Racecourse, where it's been held since. And at the Embakasi Racing Circuit, the spectatorship numbers were roughly in the tune of 2,000 people, 2,000 spectators. So when the event moved to the racecourse, the organizers had planned for roughly about the same number of spectators. But lo and behold, roughly 4,000 spectators turned up.
Wow.
Since then, the numbers have increased, and we get spectator numbers of an average of 10,000 in recent
every
years.
year.
Every year.
And this is just for a single day.
This is just a single day.
People coming to see this.
Definitely.
In those initial days, even growing, what was the motivation? Well, besides the Alfa Romeo owners coming together and spending an afternoon together, I'm sure just socializing, was there any commercial interest? Did any develop, or even other causes, for example, saying, on this year, during the Concours d'Elegance, we are supporting a certain cause, or we want to discuss how we can support? Did you branch off into those kind of things?
Well, the Concours has never been about any commercial, it's never leaned towards any commercial undertaking. Everything that happens there basically is just to give Kenyans and the world at large an opportunity to serve the offerings on that one day, which is basically seeing these beautiful vintage and classic cars. But then we also have other attractions, like we have a kids entertainment area, because it's a big family day out. So we don't like to say that this is like a game of rugby where only adults really, so to speak, are allowed in. We try to encourage Kenyans, people to come out with their families. So there's a kids entertainment area, which is a separate attraction. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Auto Expo section, which is an exposition of new models of cars in the market, as well as motoring products. So you've got people who deal in tires, people who deal in, say, batteries or car cleaning products, who also come out to exhibit their products. And then we've got a section called the Heritage Collection, which we started some 5 or 6 years back. And in the Heritage Collection, we give exhibitors an opportunity to showcase old pieces of equipment that have formed the history of this country. So, for example, one of the popular attractions there over the recent years, has been a 1919 steam engine, which still works and steams away on the day. We've got a very old Mercedes truck owned by D.T. Dobby. I think it's a 1952 model, which was the first truck owned by D.T. Dobby, and it used to shuttle between Mombasa and Nairobi, transporting spare parts from the port to their showroom in Nairobi, etc. And the truck still works, looks in very neat condition. So it's one of the exhibits you find there. We've got old pieces of, say, tractors from back in the day. In fact, a few years ago, we had a Porsche tractor. Who knew that Porsche made tractors?
A Porsche tractor?
Absolutely. Who knew that Porsche made tractors at one stage in the history?
Wow.
Yeah. So the Heritage Collection is about such bits and pieces of equipment, historical equipment. And then we've got a section for motor clubs, because we realize that we are no longer the only motor club in this country. There are many motor clubs. So we give other motor clubs also an opportunity to come in and pitch and show Kenyans what their clubs are all about.
And they recruit members as well.
Then we have a section called the Classic Cell, where we allow anybody who's got any classic car that they would want to sell. It's like an auto bazaar, so to speak. So they can come and park it there and offer it to the public. And it doesn't have to be a moving car. It can be a junk brought in the back of a truck or a flatbed and parked there. And in fact, the classic sales section has been a good source of project cars for classic car enthusiasts who purchase cars there and take them through a restoration process. And a few years later, the cars come back there.
To the Concours, looking all different.
Looking all different.
What qualifies as a classic or vintage car?
A classic car, okay, let me start with a vintage car. A vintage car is defined as one that was built between 1919, 1st January of 1919, up to 31st December 1930. Then from 1st January 1931, you've got what we refer to as a post-vintage era. And that goes until roughly the start of World War II in 1939. I think September 1939. And during the Second World War, most vehicle production companies basically stopped manufacturing cars because of the war. So most production of cars then resumed again after the war, after 1945. So from that era, we then classify cars as classic. But a classic car, universally, the universal accepted definition is also one that must be at least 25 years old. It varies from here to there. I think in America they try to say at least 30 years old. But in the rest of the world, we talk of 25 years. So for instance, in our Concord Elegance, the criteria for entering a car to the event is that it must be at least 25 years old.
So 1997.
1997. This year, 1997. Yeah, but that only applies to cars. For motorcycles, we're a bit lenient because we don't have very many classic motorcycles in this country. So for motorbikes, we accept up to, from 5 years old and above.
All right. Let's take a break, then we continue the conversation. Coming up to 8:30. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home and online. Our guest this morning is a man who understands vintage and classic vehicles. Peter Wandai is a chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. We are talking about the 50th edition of the Africa Concours d'Elegance that's taking place this weekend, the 25th of September, Sunday, at the racecourse. Dress up for the event. We are all talking about, dressing up and all, and preparing and coming for the event to see the vintage and the classic cars and motorbikes, and also have fun just going around looking at these old vehicles, going around and interacting and chilling and taking the kids, let them play, let them enjoy, let them know that old is gold. and spouses as well, so they don't throw things out.
Spouses are old and gold. Okay.
Yeah. I will say no more.
Okay, stop.
I will say no more. So that's the conversation we're having. Also remember that there is County 49 that is showing on showmax.com. And County 49 is about what?
It's Botella County, and it's a fictional county in Kenya's breadbasket. The intrigues of governance and policy and what you can or cannot do with a leader are very interesting. And Showmax drops another episode this Thursday. And the story continues for as little as 600... I'm going to switch those numbers. For as little as 760 shillings every month, you have access to this great programming and others only on Showmax.
Indeed. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice.
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me.
Sugar and spice, or sugar, spice.
When you think about education hubs, Japan has long been at the list of preferred destinations to provide world-class programs. The Study in Japan Global Network Project and Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology in Japan are hosting an online event for students and professionals looking to further their education and join master's and PhD programs in social sciences such as internal public policy and conflict studies, economics and management, and sciences such as information technology, environmental sciences, biomedical science, agriculture, engineering, and veterinary medicine. Join the Study in Japan online fair for Sub-Saharan Africa 2022 on the 30th of September and on the 1st of October by registering on 2022.studyinjapan-africa-portal.com. Don't miss out.
We know it is cold, but Cold Stone Creamery has hot deals for you. This month, enjoy cups of rich and creamy ice cream, delicious ice cream cakes, and fresh oven-baked cakes at amazing prices. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and indulge in your favorite treats. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
All right, the sun is up in Nairobi, 17 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 16. 17 degrees and sunny conditions in Nakuru, highs of 25. We'll see highs of 24 in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 17. It's 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 13. And light rain at 25 in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 23. We're looking at light rain also in Malindi at 26, highs of 29, and 29 will be the high in a sunny Kisumu at 20. It's looking like sunny conditions throughout most of Kakamega at 21, highs of 28 today. Out in Kampala, it's sunny at 21, highs of 28, and 28 will be the high in a rainy Dar es Salaam at 24. It's 9 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 22, and we'll see highs of 29 in a rainy Lagos at 24. Sunny conditions at 24 in Kinshasa, I beg your pardon, highs of 31 and lows of 23. All right, coming off Likoni Road towards that Likoni interchange, then you're heading towards the southern bypass. Some traffic there. It's been heavy since morning. Coming off Jogo Road, also doing the same thing. So Lunga then connects eventually with the Likoni Road. As it does coming off of Jogo Road, Lusaka Road is going to touch off Jogo Road and connect with whatever the mess is that's happening on Langata Road, all feeding onto Uhuru Highway this morning. Rilo Dinga Way looking a little bit messy this morning as you connect with Gong Road, which this whole other mess of traffic. Well, let's call it the axis of traffic this morning, because that's what it looks like. Naivasha to Gitanga, then spilling over to James Gishuru. Look on the other side, Mzima Springs, coming out of that whole Chiromo area and then going towards, okay, that's just traffic. And it's also doing the same thing on the Thika Superhighway, coming off of Kiambu Road, as well as Limuru Road. We're still in traffic hour and looks like it's going to be busy for some time. Hopefully you can keep it safe. Let us know what's going on where you are, just in case you can't get out or you find a good route that folks can use. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
24 minutes to
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The conversation continues with Peter Wandai, chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. The 50th edition of the Africa Concours d'Elegance taking place this Sunday, the 25th of September, at the race course. And we want everybody to go there. Peter, describe to us a typical vintage and classic car enthusiast or collector. What is it about this person who has a 1919 engine parked somewhere in their yard?
Well, Eric, they say that you got to have some passion in life that you do outside your daily
your life
work and daily work chores, too much work but no play makes Jack a dull boy. So you've got people who just take an interest in collecting cars. And the whole thing actually about vintage and classic car enthusiasm is, I would say it's twofold. So you've got on the one hand that enthusiast who's interested in just collection. He's got no mechanical skills. He's got nothing to do with the restoration of cars. He would rather buy a ready product, a ready vintage and classic car, or buy a shell and give it to somebody to fix it up and deliver back to him as a sparkling, newish looking classic or vintage.
Yeah.
Then on the other hand, you've got the collector who is also a restorer. So these are guys who take time to tinker with the cars and fix it up themselves. You'd be surprised that most of the vintage and classic car restorers in this town actually work from their houses. They actually fix these cars themselves. Maybe with a small team of mechanics to help them, but they work from their houses. So it's the same way like having a paint collector and a painter, an artist basically. So one is an artist, the other one is a collector. And then you've got a mixture of these. You've got those who are restorers and collectors as well, who are actually the majority. Yeah.
We don't then talk about this being a project. This passion. So let's say you've bought a shell and you want to restore this vehicle. Typically, how long does it take? And what does it entail? What is restoring a vehicle?
Restoring a vehicle can take anything from 6 months to 5 years or even more. There are some cars which have been under restoration for even 10 years.
Wow.
That's a bit extreme. But on average, you're looking at between 1 year to 3 years. And you see, most of these cars are rust buckets. By the time the owners find them, they're really rust buckets. So the process of restoration, basically, you strip down this machine to bare metal, basically bare frame, take out all the components and put them aside. And you're left with a bare frame. And you start from there. Usually such a frame would be rusty because of the vagaries of weather over the years.
Yep.
So you start with preparing the shell, anti-rust treatment and perhaps patching up rusty quarters and that kind of a thing, Then you start now the rebuilding process. Once your shell is intact, you start the rebuilding process. You look at the various components from suspension and steering to engine and gearbox. More often than not, you go to tear apart the engine and the transmission and overhaul them, because maybe this is a car that has not moved for even 20, 30, 50, 60 years, So you go to get all the parts, tear it apart, do an overhaul, rebuild the engine, rebuild the transmission, rebuild the suspension, nice paint work on the body. And then there's the interior as well. In most of these cars, the interior is all gone. The upholstery is not anything to write home about. So you got to get a good upholsterer to reupholster the interior.
And it's got to look like it used to look in its years.
Yes, a good restoration is about restoring a car to its period correct status or condition. You've got some restorers who do a little bit of modifications here and there in terms of the looks, but a good restoration is about one that tries to look as close as possible to the original car when it left the factory. And in fact, some of these cars, I wish you come to the race course on Sunday, some of these cars look actually better than when they left the showroom in terms of the attention they've been given.
Yeah. But I would also assume that it costs quite a penny. Because when you're talking about, let's say, just the engine and the suspension and all, you've got to get the spare part for a vehicle that's no longer in production. That means that you have to shop around the world for somebody who's got the suspensions for this particular model.
Yeah, that's true, but I wouldn't want to say that it is really that it breaks your bank completely. First of all, it's a hobby like any other, and all hobbies and interests come at a cost. If you're a golfer, I don't know whether you play golf. I see my friends who play golf. I don't, because I prefer to tinker with metal rather than hit a ball with a club on a green field. But if you're a golfer, you'd probably be always buying golfing equipment and wear and flying from one town to the other to indulge in your passion in your golfing passion. It comes at a cost. So some of the friends I know even fly internationally to go and play around the golf or enter a tournament internationally. So everything comes at a cost. If you are a motorsport enthusiast who's racing and all that, a race car doesn't come cheap. So everything comes at a cost. But the good thing about car restoration is that you do it slowly. As I mentioned, most restorations are done over a long period of time. It could be 2-3 years. So you do it at your own pace. You're not under any pressure that this car must be ready next month or next year. You work at your own pace. You get a little bit of money and you buy the parts and move one step ahead, and that until you complete it. There are, in the Western world, there are a lot of. The classic car culture is much bigger than here, so you get a lot of spare parts out there. In Europe, in the United States, there are people who actually produce aftermarket parts for a lot of these old models, which are no longer in production.
It's interesting that you said that, because one would think that an event like the Concours d'Elegance, you come out on Sunday and that you've just, pulled out your vehicle from, under the wraps on Friday, but that this is a hobby, that it's a habitual thing that you're doing, and then everybody then comes together on this day, but it's something that you've been doing in continuance. Is it also an escape? I'm an enthusiast of getting away from, the things that would eat you up. So would you look at it as that social, an opportunity for you to do something different from the stresses of the day? And I'm not just talking about Sunday, but the habit of, refurbishing,
tinkering with metal.
Yes. No, you're quite right. Actually, as a matter of fact, quite a number of classic car restorers or classic car enthusiasts in this town are retirees. You'll be surprised. So these are guys who need to find something to do in their free time now that they've stopped their daily routine of 8 to 5 job. So, I could straight away think of quite a number of my colleagues who wake up in the morning and work on classic cars until evening. And they do that 5 days or 6 days a week. That's what keeps them going. Then you've got the other enthusiasts who are still in their productive stages of their lives, and they've got their 8 to 5 jobs, me included. But then here comes the weekend, and what do you do with your weekend? So you basically set up a routine. Maybe on Saturday and Sunday, or maybe Friday and Saturday, you're basically going flat out to work on your machine. So it's something, gives you an opportunity to get out of that boredom, or you
just
get
that routine.
That routine,
it's an escape, like Ndu was asking.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just also about waiting once a year for the Concord Elegance to come and take your car out. I mean, we have other activities throughout the year. We get together as classic car enthusiasts. We meet for an afternoon of just, car banter, over a drink, coffee, or a beer or something, take out our cars, admire them, just talk a little bit about them. Sometimes we do long drives. We drive to Nanyuki, we drive to Naivasha, we drive to Western Kenya in these classic cars, Yeah. So there's a lot that we do with these cars.
Do you now also, have you found over the last 50 years, in which you combine, so there is the love for vintage cars, and as you're meeting, you're also indulging in other vintages. Let's say this particular event is all about bringing our classic cars to this place where we've got vintage collection of wines and whiskey, and has it grown into that?
Absolutely.
Or we are going into this old place, this old home, it's 1930 estate, and this house has been renovated and rehabilitated by so and so.
Times.
Yeah, and we visited the house.
No, you're quite spot on. I mean, yeah, the interest is evolved beyond just cars. It's taken over other interests as well. Like you say, we talk or indulge in fine vintage drinks as well, as an example. But then also there's a collection of other memorabilia, from back in time. So some of our enthusiasts, you'll find them collecting coins or collecting stamps or pieces of equipment like old gramophones, record players, and stuff like that. Somebody I know, whom I'll not mention, recently acquired some very interesting and old sewing machine as part of his collection.
Operated by hand,
yes,
I can imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is interesting, because then it also looks as though it then is preserved for a certain age group. But I would see that younger people also would be interested in this as well. And I'm going beyond Sunday the 25th, and even before that, is there space for them as well to see, to be part of, this, experience, even at a younger age?
Exactly. I mean, most people tend to think that because it's a process, to get maybe classic car going, maybe it's not your daily runner. If you own a classic car, it's not your daily runner. So most people tend to imagine that it's a spare car. So for one to be able to have the resources to keep that, you must be somehow maybe a bit advanced in life and all that. But that's not entirely true. We have a big crop of young lads who have taken a big interest in vintage and classic cars. In fact, the classic car movement in this country is growing at an amazing rate, and it's mostly composed of very young people. We've got young lads in their 20s who are collecting cars. On Sunday, the 25th of September, we will have quite a number of young entrants showcasing their machines. I can straight away think of probably about 4 or 5 entrants who are under 30.
Right.
Under 30 years old. Yeah, so we've got a big crop of young enthusiasts joining this, taking an interest in this fad.
Now you yourself, as Peter and I, how long have you been a member of this club?
I haven't been a member of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club that long. Maybe 10, 15 years or so. Because remember, one of the criteria is to own an Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
I grew up with a strong love for Alfa Romeos. I think the Alfa Romeo bug hit me when I was 13 years old. Don't ask me when I became a car enthusiast. But my love for cars and machines generally goes back to when I was even in my preteen days. So I developed a strong interest in Alfa Romeos when I was about 13 years old. And by the time I was of age to own a car, I really wanted to buy an Alfa Romeo. But it wasn't very easy. There were very few around. The guys who had them were not ready to part with them.
Holding on to them.
Holding on to them. And occasionally then you'd come across one, but it was a rust bucket, and I wasn't ready to, or neither did I have the resources to resuscitate such a rust bucket. So it took me a bit of time to get an Alfa Romeo. But I kept tabs with the club. So I was, in a way, a big supporter of the club, associated with the club quite a bit. So the moment I grabbed one Alfa Romeo, I think the following day I joined the club.
You never looked back.
I never looked back. And within a short time I joined the committee, and the rest is history.
It's called manifest. From the age of 13,
I know.
I'm going to own an Alfa Romeo, right?
One day.
One day. And that day came. And now he is the chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. Are there people who currently are members of the club or even owners of the Alfa Romeo or participants, regular participants in the Concours d'Elegance, who picked it up from their parents over the years?
Yes, we've got quite a number of those. We are seeing a generational kind of transition now. So we are seeing a lot of some of the older enthusiasts handing over to their children, and some are deceased now, and the children have taken a big interest and have continued with the passion. So yes, it's happening. My own kids are all petrol heads in their own right, and two of my children will be participating on Sunday. I have a daughter who participated at the Concours, who entered the Concours at the tender age of 17. She entered a motorcycle, no less. At the age of 17. This year I have a son entering a 1956 motorcycle, and he's also entering a 50-year-old car, and one of my daughters is entering a 42-year-old car.
Wow.
Let's talk about this entering thing. What does that mean? So you're entering a car?
As a competitor.
Not literally getting in the car.
For to what end? Why bring your car to this event? And then then you'll tell us about this particular event, the Sunday event, how many entrants we have, how many entries we have, how many cars, how many motorcycles.
Yeah, so why enter the event? I mean, if you're a classic car enthusiast and you're a collector and you've got some cars, this event accords you the opportunity once in a year to take it out to this big show. By the way, this is one of the biggest Concours d'Elegance events around the world. There are a number of Concours d'Elegance events around the world, and this is one of the biggest, certainly the biggest in Africa. So it gives you an opportunity to that one day get out there and showcase your car and mingle with other car enthusiasts, see what they have. And it also challenges you. It challenges you in a way that you see what other competitors have been able to do with their machines. And you want to improve your standards of your machine as well. Because if you just keep this car at home and just drive it around, you'll probably not realize that the game is changing. So you want to up
their game.
Yeah, so that's really why you should get out there as a competitor and bring your car. In terms of entries, the event is open to 70 cars and 40 motorcycles. And we cap the numbers because the judging process is very intense and rigorous. And it's a one-day event. I mean, if you make the entry list open-ended, you could be there judging for 2 days straight, So to ensure high quality standard of judging, we cap the number of entries. Judging starts from 10 o'clock in the morning, and the last car leaves the judging line roughly around 3:30 in the afternoon. And it's non-stop. I mean, there's no break. It's non-stop judging throughout. So out of the 70 vintage and classic cars and the 40 vintage and classic motorcycles, we also allow a reserve list of 10%. So the maximum we would take for cars is 77. That is 70 plus a 10% reserve. And for motorcycles, it's 40 plus 4. That is because on the days some car might fail to start and it doesn't show up and all that. Yeah. So this year we actually have a full house. We have we closed the entries on Friday last week, and we have 71 cars and 44 motorcycles. So it's really a full house. Yeah.
What does judging entail?
The judging entails looking at various aspects of the car. So for the cars, for example, there are 5 judging stations. The first judging station is the underside of the car. And our Conco is quite unique compared to many other Conco events around the world, in the sense that most events I know of around the world, including the largest Conco in the world, Pebble Beach, California, they do not really inspect the underside of the car. The cars are just parked there, and all the judges will do is try and bend a little bit and take a sneak peek at the bottom of the car. But ours, the car goes over a ramp, full-size ramp, and the judge walks underneath the car. This is a Quartz Oil's sponsored ramp. It's quite an attraction at the event. And so that's the first judging point, the underside of the car, where the judges look at the condition of the underside, the condition of the exhaust, whether there are any oil leaks, whether there are any water leaks, the condition of the suspensions from underneath. Then the car drives down the ramp to the second judging point. And again, another unique point about our Conco is that it is a mobile judging line. A number of Conco events around the world are static.
Car is
parked, the judge walk
comes
around to each car. But ours, the cars drive to each judging point. So it's a mobile judging line. So the second judging line, the judges look at the condition of the exterior of the car. So basically the paintwork, if there are any dents, condition of the chrome work, the shiny stuff, the condition of the lights, not in terms of functionality, but condition of the glass and all that. Then the next judging point, the third judging point, is the interior condition of the car. So they look at the upholstery, the condition of the dashboard, the mats, the boot as well.
Wow.
And then the fourth one is engine bay, where the judges look at the condition of the engine bay. Just the cleanliness of the engine bay, the how intact it is, the condition of the wiring looms, again, if there are any visible leaks and all that. Then the fifth and last judging point is roadworthiness, where the judges look at the roadworthiness condition of the car. Basically, does your horn work? Do your lights work? Stuff like that. Do your wipers work? And for any stuff that does not work, there are penalty points that are taken away. Now, like I mentioned, it's a mobile judging process. So if the car fails to start, for example, and has to be pushed from one point to another, then there's a penalty of 10 points that is deducted. So those are the 5 judging points. But there's another one, a 6th one, which is not strictly related to the car and is optional, and that is a costume judging. So participants are free to dress up in a costume of their choice, perhaps linked to the theme of the event or linked to the theme of the sponsors. And it's a fancy dress competition, so to speak.
Actually,
so we have
now, as we mentioned the costume, as we conclude the conversation in about 30 seconds, what is the theme for this year? So how should we dress?
Right. This year, as you know, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Concourse. So it's our Golden Jubilee. So the theme is gold. It's simply gold. So we are expecting spectators,
have gold
ladies
somewhere.
and gents and children to come out dressed with something with a dash of gold.
Right.
Nice.
Quisha.
And gold is actually the color for Jubilee, Golden Jubilee.
That's it. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. See?
Mingiana.
Nice.
We are there. This Sunday, Peter, we are coming.
Asante.
Peter Wandai is the chairman of the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. He's been here talking to us about the 50th Africa Conquer Elegance taking place this Sunday at the race course. It's gold. Come with a touch of gold. Have a lovely morning. Conversations continue. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. A case in which former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu is accused of an irregular award of 588 million shillings road tender has been adjourned. The Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution yesterday said Waititu's team had filed an adjournment request which was granted by the Milimani Law Court's Chief Magistrate. The former county boss, who was impeached as Kiambu Governor in January 2020, is alongside 12 others charged with a irregular award of 588 million shillings road tender. The hearing has now been set for October the 14th. With the incoming government expected to create a task force to review the competency-based curriculum, Education CS George Magoha has come out to defend it. Magoha, who was speaking during the official opening ceremony of the Kenya Music Festival in Kisumu yesterday, said the current environment is radically different from the 844 system of education, which was created to respond to. While defending the CBC curriculum, Magoha said the current generation needed an education that equips learners not just with knowledge but capacity to learn and relearn.
This is actually the way to go, so that when a child leaves school in after Form 4, you don't have to be saying, oh, I passed to go to university so that I get a certificate, so that I stay for 20 years, so that I can get a job.
At the same time, Magoha has called for the ban of pornographic websites in Kenya, either by the current government or the next one.
A decision will have to be made. As much as we enjoy the freedom of everything, including the internet, the pornographic centers must be blocked like yesterday. When I mentioned this, I said, no, you are a dictator. Yes, as far as pornography is concerned, I want to remain a dictator.
President William Ruto is scheduled to make his maiden presidential address at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly tomorrow. He's expected to arrive in New York following Queen Elizabeth II's burial yesterday. After the address, he is slated to join world leaders at a reception hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden, which will mark the end of his tour. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the session will concentrate on the confluence of crises, that is COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, among other issues.
20 countries are responsible for 80% of emissions. And they are also suffering the impact of record droughts, fires and floods. But climate action seems to be flatlining. If 1/3 of G20 countries was underwater today, as it could be tomorrow, perhaps they would find it easier to agree on drastic cuts to emissions.
Ruto will also hold bilateral talks with several heads of state and government on the sidelines of the annual UN meeting. Now, Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Macharia Kamau has lauded the proposed establishment of the Ministry of Diaspora to address issues affecting its citizens. Macharia told members of the National Assembly that his ministry was overwhelmed even as it focuses to boost remittances. President William Ruto said the decision to create the docket was arrived at following complaints that the Kenyans in the diaspora have not received the attention they deserve. The president promised Kenyans in the diaspora that he will put in place a ministry that will address their concerns better. Now matters international. A bus carrying infected people to a COVID-19 quarantine facility in China has crashed, killing 27 of those on board. The coach overturned on a motorway in the southwestern province of Guangzhou. Another 20 people were injured. Only 2 people have died from the COVID in Guangzhou province since the pandemic struck almost 3 years ago. The incident sparked anger on Chinese social media, where netizens have long expressed wariness and rage over China's zero COVID policy. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
104.4 Spice FM.
All right,
Nairobi.
so Superhighway, we're still looking at traffic coming into the city, and it's quite heavy just at that Pangani underpass. Looks a lot better coming off of Kiambu Road. Not as heavy as it was before, but we're still looking at bumper to bumper just at that drift. Limuru Road coming in from Gigiri, which was really heavy earlier on, is still doing the thing as you're trying to get into the city. But you should be all right in not too long from now. It's still looking a bit busy coming off of Naivasha Road. It's going to continue on Gong Road for a minute, but it won't be too painful, at least not for now. What was coming off of Mombasa Road going towards North Airport Road and then out towards Outer Ring, we're seeming to be able to stabilize things now. Let's talk in about half hour, see what happens. Then SpiceFM KE, Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
It is 7 minutes
the
after 9. Good
Situation Room,
morning and welcome
the
to
only
the
way
final
to start
hour
your
of
day.
The Situation Room this Tuesday. It's 20th again.
Okay. It's Christmas.
It's 20th of September. And then tomorrow,
It's 21st.
wish like that.
Done.
Mashujaa
New
Day,
Year.
Jamhuri Day, Christmas. And like that.
You know, tomorrow is the anniversary of Westgate, yeah?
Tomorrow is Westgate anniversary.
Yeah.
Sure.
How many years?
Since 2013.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
about
what,
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
And we still don't have a full account of what happened there for 4 days. You know?
You haven't seen the account. Maybe there's a full account.
Well, there's none, actually. They haven't given it, at least. It's not been made public.
Yes. The guests who are speaking are going to be talking to us this morning. We're looking at everything now that the Queen was buried yesterday. Now we're still coming back into, okay, what is the legacy of the British Empire and the British government in Africa and other parts of the world? Before I introduce and welcome the guests, let me tell you today's proverb. It's a Tanzanian proverb. Every bird flies with its own wings. Every bird flies with its own wings. Patrick Adhara, curator, The Elephant. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation again. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Again. Say again.
Thanks for having me again.
Say again.
I'm becoming a regular now.
It's a good thing. Joel Kimutai Bosek is an advocate of the High Court. He joins us for the first time. Karibu sana, Joel.
Asante sana.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. That is the hot seat, but because Gadara is here and he's used to it, so we'll transfer the heat to him, and then we now bring it all to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready for it?
All three of us now.
Probably I have something to cool it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Wakili, a quick one.
Sure.
When you hear this, right? When you hear the proverb today from Tanzania, every bird flies with its own wings. What do you translate that to mean?
Oh, it can mean many things, and it can also mean that at the end of the day, flight has to be taken individually. In other words, you might not really hike a lift, and if we must do things, we must flock together, like they say, the Englishmen say, and also women, I believe, that birds of the same feather flock together. So it means but that all of them are flying, or we must have a common purpose, take a flight together, and nobody actually will give you a lift when you're flying. Yeah.
Even as we say, we are doing something collectively, we must do it individually.
That is it. At the end of the day, there is also individual responsibility. Yes.
Very well said. Very well said. Stephanie is reading a news item this morning, and even as we're talking about what happened yesterday in London and Windsor, we saw the burial of the Queen. There's also the issue of the atrocities that are committed by the British government in colonial era Kenya. And we have seen those cases taken to court. The Mau Mau have taken cases to court. Now we are seeing members of the is it Kipsigis community?
Kipsigis and the Talai.
And the Talai.
Yes.
Now also raising issues. You're involved in this particular case, Wakili.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yes, this is a case that we are suing the British government, that is the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and we decided to take the case to the European Court of Human Rights because we believe that is where our matters will be best addressed, as opposed to taking it to the High Court in England, in London in particular, because of a number of logistical issues, which we felt that if we are to file it there, then it could have not seen the light of the day.
Like which ones?
Number one, English has this very interesting mentality that even if you wrong 100 people, you should be very careful to admit that you have wronged them. Because if one of them was to sue you and you admit and you pay reparation or compensation, then it will open what is called the floodgates. But of course, this is something that is backdated, this is outdated, this is something that does not hold. If you wrong 100 people, you should be prepared to address all those wrongs. Like what you have said about the Methali, Kiswahili from Tanzania. You should be prepared to address every issue. So they've been telling us that, look here, guys, we compensated the Mau Mau. And as far as we are concerned, we have sorted out all those issues. Can you imagine? Somebody telling you that in English, in a language you understand.
One can hope.
The Mau Mau issues arose in 1952. Our issues started from 1902 all the way to 1963. Yes, so we are saying Mau Mau was just a figment. And ours is a case where there's been a lot of massive dispossession. If you talk about the tea estates in Kericho, you actually get shocked that all those farms were owned by the Kipsigis and the Talai, but they were taken away from them forcefully. There was no negotiation, there was burning of houses, there was torture, there was rape, there was confiscation of livestock, and so many other things that took place. And the survivors of those atrocities are still alive, and they are the ones who have gone to court to tell the world the story about the British dispossession. One funny and interesting thing about British is that they can steal from you even when you are seeing. I mean, that's robbery, isn't
With
it?
your eyes wide open.
Yes. They steal from you when you are stealing, when you are seeing it.
You know, on the case of the Mau Mau, we have to be careful that it wasn't all the Mau Mau who were compensated. It was just a case of 5,000 of them.
Yeah.
You know, and you remember the British didn't actually even admit a responsibility for that. They were saying, actually, in fact, the argument before had been that we should compensate ourselves, that we inherited the colonial government, so therefore we are the ones who inherited. You know, I'm serious, that's what they were saying.
That is very true. Actually, the Mau Mau 2 case failed, and that one had more than 43,000 victims. But it failed because of the same argument. Number one, that when we got independence, the independent Kenyan government inherited all the atrocities that were done by the colonial government, which was actually based in London.
Yeah.
When we got independence in 1963, the 12th of December 1963, it's not a date that we chose. It's not the date that Mau Mau chose. There was a law in England, the Kenya Independence Act. And that act says that from the 12th of December 1963, British government, UK government, will cease to have responsibility over Kenya. So they had responsibility after 1963. Yes, they can't run away from that.
Yeah, that's
true.
what
their law says.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to remember, I mean, given the context we are in, that in 1963, the Queen was still the head of state here. In fact, if you read Gigi Kariuki's PhD thesis, looking at how the Constitution, the Lancaster Constitution evolved, he says even on 12th December 1963, Kenyatta was pretty much just an advisor to the governor. Till we became a republic, that entire year, they were in charge.
Prime Minister.
Yeah,
just a
the
title.
British were still in charge. So it's really important. I think the point you're making, that these guys maintained responsibility, and that comes with its consequence, and they shouldn't be allowed to run away from it.
Even before we look at the issues and how then the process will play out in terms of court in London. Now, one would believe that if you're getting into a case like this, that there must be then even acknowledgement of an issue. So the Mau Mau issue was brought, some 5,000 compensated. Not all the Mau Mau are obviously. There's some, I believe there's a famous story of one woman, I don't know if she's deceased now, but she was very elderly, and she wrote to the Queen, I believe it was early this year, and said, look, my legs were basically chopped, injured, because of what you people did here. I'm still looking for compensation. So those stories are rife.
Sure.
This is now an addition, something new that is coming up. I believe fundamentally there must be at least an acknowledgement of these, what we are calling wrongs that were done upon the Kenyan people. Does that exist? Is there such that somebody has even answered and said, all right, let's even begin to look into this? Has that occurred?
That has never happened, and that is what we've been asking for. And even as you speak about that elderly Shosho who has been making such kind of requests, I have a client by the name of Mzee Arap Ngasura, who is a Talai. She's the only one who is surviving the mass exodus, the forceful eviction of the Talai from Kericho to Kwasi, which was done in 1934. That Mzee wish is that one time the British will actually call him so that he can apologize on behalf of the Talais. He believes that the reason why God is still keeping him alive is because he'll be the one to go on record to forgive the British for what they did. Okay. Because we are talking of somebody who was born and who has not enjoyed his life. We are talking of somebody who was probably 6 years older than the Queen. The Queen has had all the luxuries a human being can ever have in this world.
And then some.
But then, this Mzee has been denied his godly human rights privileges that are inalienable. So you see that kind of paradox, where somebody else has denied others their full life in this God-given life. Yeah, and then it's not something that we can wish it away. It's something that we must face it. It's something that we must address it. It's something that we must sit around the table and be very candid about it.
Give us this story of Mzee Arap Ngasura as a case study. What is this that happened to him and his people? This eviction from Kericho. What happened?
Remember the Talais or the Libons is a special clan among the Kalenjin. It came from the Maasais, although they trace their origin to Ethiopia, but they came from Nandi to Kipsigis, and because they are not only warlike, but they had the gift, it was believed that they had the gift of prophecies. So the British did not like them because with the Kipsigis, I'm a Kipsigis myself, we treated them as our kings. We respected them. We gave them all the honor. And obviously the British administration was not very careful. We are not very happy about it.
So they were the influencers.
Influencers, and not only that, because they were seeing another center of power.
Right.
Yes. No sovereign will ever tolerate another center of power. So they felt that these people must be removed from the Kipsigis And they came up with all manner of propaganda, what we knew to be prophecies. They say this is, they are witch doctors, they are naturally witch doctors, that they are people who are born witches. So that kind of propaganda, and unfortunately, there are some people who still believe it after today, which is really a very retrogressive thing, because if they were witch doctors, the people who they should have bewitched first and foremost should have been the queen and everybody else.
If it really worked.
What is this witchcraft that can affect only Africans?
So what happened? So they were removed. How were they removed?
They were removed firstly from Kericho. You know, Kericho is an island, very cool climate, to a place called Kwasi. Kwasi is in Homa Bay and Migori. The condition there was very hostile. The climate is not one that people can easily survive. That's why in the first 3 years, there was 100% abortion. All the women who conceived had miscarriages. They lost all their animals because they went with the animals. It was an exodus. It was almost like that one of Moses, only that this one was inspired by human beings. And this was meant to kill other human beings. And then in Kwasi, Kwasi was like an open prison, like Siberia in history. If you remember the Russian history, where if you are on the wrong side of government, they'll just punish you to Siberia, a very cold place. So actually, these people were being put into an open prison because the reason why I'm saying it was a prison, every year they'll do a census. We know very well that internationally, the practice is that every 10 years, census is done.
Yeah.
But for the Talai, it was every year. And then census is always done so that you can provide services like education, health, and so forth. But for the Talai, they were denied all those, so that you find generation of Talais who are having physical challenges, like because there were no hospitals, many children had polio, and many people have lived with polio, others with blindness, and so many other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this case and I'm looking at then where all of this is going to go. And what you've described so far is life-changing stuff. The people who born and never had a chance. And then one would be able to link it directly to what happened as a result of the, I think, even more than colonization of the British and the ways in which they were treated before the years of independence. So what is being sought with these cases? What is being sought? And then as you answer that, is it enough that would then be able to say, all right, since that you've done this, whether it is monetary compensation, whether it is a public recognition and apology thereof of what was done, is it enough, or is it at least, my father used to say that, give us this proverb that a rat will bite your toes and then blow to make it feel a little better. Is that what you're looking for? What exactly is the ask?
What the victims are looking for is first and foremost that there should be acknowledgement that they were wronged. There should be an apology from the British monarch that what was done against them was not right and that they deserve to be treated as human beings. Then obviously there should also be some form of compensation. And we are not saying that we are looking at very ridiculous figures. But now that we are in court, we are obliged to put on the table before the court everything that we feel that should be considered during the calculation for compensation. Yes. But were it to be an outside court settlement, then obviously there will be like a process of give and take.
I don't get why we sort of minimize what we should ask for. I mean, these guys have done really
This is
ridiculous.
what I'm asking.
I mean, in the US today, they are holding $3.5 billion of Afghanistan's money and saying they're going to give it to relatives of victims of 9/11. You know, 3.5 billion, that's a huge amount.
They're going to give it to Americans.
Yes, they're going to give it to Americans.
That's about 400 billion.
You know,
a unilateral decision, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at what the families of Lockerbie were given, you know, these are massive amounts. Why is it that African lives are somehow lesser? That 5,000
people, Mau Mau guys were given £20,000 and they're supposed to be happy with that.
Actually, it was 30 million sterling pounds to be divided into 5,000 victims.
I mean, it's a tiny whatever amount. So I don't think we should minimize the thing. And the other issue that I wanted to raise when it comes to acknowledgements.
Sure.
Acknowledgements isn't simply saying, yes, we did this. At independence, these guys stole a bunch of documents, from Kenya and repatriated it to the UK and lied actually till the Mau Mau case, They lied that they had these documents. They lied to their own courts, that they had them. They were destroying them as recently as in the 1980s. Huge caches of documents that detail all of these things people are alleging happened.
Sure.
And for a long time they denied. So they denied they were running torture camps here in Kenya, for a long time, till we actually got those documents, in their own right. Now, this is what they were doing, Those documents still today remain in the UK.
Actually, what you are very right.
They haven't been repatriated here. So we are reading books like Karen Elkin's book, whatever, The British Gulag, David Anderson, Histories of the Hanged. All of these books, based on those documents, are being written by people who can make it there. They should be here with us so we can write our own histories, So acknowledgement isn't just them saying, yeah, I'm sorry we did that. It's actually going much, much further and ensuring that first that archive is repatriated back, it's brought here, And then we actually have a sensible discussion about compensation because we have families still today that are suffering from the effects of what those guys did. And it's not just the Tanais across the country.
Okay, so coming off of what you've just said, Bozek and Patrick, I've seen a comment here, and it's not the first time that I've heard that being said. Look, these are things that happened,
60 plus,
60, I mean,
going
good
into
heavens.
80.
It happened
100.
long ago. These fellas, they've gone back to the UK, everybody's now in their place. And now it's our own governance and way of life is now upon us. Can we not just forgive and move on? Lawyers trying to make money from these, what would be global class action kind of thing. Can't we just forgive these people? We know they came, they did wrong. It's okay, we understand. It's an argument that is held by very, very many people.
Okay,
what would you say to that?
Let me say this. First of all, what my brother has said here is very true. I've had the privilege of going to the Kew Gardens Royal Archives in London, and what you are saying is very true. One thing that I don't know whether to appreciate with the white people is that they don't know how to lie. And there's this thing that when you put everything in black and white in my book, you actually you have hidden it from an African. Then an African will not read. An African will not do research. Those things that you are saying about atrocities, they were being done with impunity. They never knew that we will be one time independent. They never knew that at one time we'll be taking their government to any court in this world. I mean, everything was being done the way you probably can do with your goats. I mean, you are not responsible.
You never think that your goat is going to wake up one morning and ask you, good morning, Bozek, how are you?
That is it.
Right?
Yes, so, and then the reason why we cannot forget it is because it's part of our history. The other reason is people are still hurting. You go to Kericho, and Kericho is actually like an apartheid state. I normally say apartheid started in Kericho, but it was perfected in South Africa. You'll find one place where it's only white, the tea estates. You don't find any African, any black people, any black person owning land. Today. Then the other side was created as what is called a native reserve. You've heard of people saying the sharks, Ushago, reserve. Reserve was number 2 after the game reserves belonging to wild animals. So the second in that order was the poor African person.
Good Lord.
So when you still have all those kind of stuff, when you still have British multinational tea companies raking billions of Kenya shillings in terms of profits every year, not dropping a cent for the benefit of the local people. It's very hard to talk about this thing called forgetting and moving on. People are now living in cramped parcels of land, 1 acre accommodating, let's say, 10 families. And yet there is land that belongs to their grandfather, which could have accommodated all of them. But we are not saying that people should go back to that land. We are saying people should benefit from their resources. Yeah.
When you talk about land, then it also brings in that other conversation about whose responsibility is it. At that point of independence, was there a conversation about land redistribution among the Africans? And why did it not happen?
Okay, I believe that you've asked your question. Sorry for interjecting. Number one, land issues has remained very elusive and emotive until the other day when we came with this new constitution of 2010. And I must applaud the work of the National Land Commission. For the Kipsis and the Talai, we went to the National Land Commission and they gave an award. They say actually this land should have been surrendered at independence. Independence was about surrender this land to the people. But that was not done. There was a lot of compromise. You mentioned about, is it JM Karaoke?
No, that's Gigi Karaoke.
Oh, Gigi Karaoke, yes. JM Karaoke, when you look at history and if we head our way, probably that should have been actually the president of this country, even maybe for 2 years or 3 years. Because he seemed to have had the right agenda for the people of Kenya. Number one, why create an island of 10 millionaires amidst 10 poor people, 10 million beggars? It can't work. So that when we got independence, the land that belongs to the white settlers, many of people, allies that time, took it away. There was a revolving fund given by the British government. And let me be very clear about this. This revolving fund of 100 million sterling pounds was not meant for compensation. Let that be very clear. It was meant to assist any African who wanted to buy land to be given some form of loan to pay for the white settler who was not comfortable staying in Kenya. Actually, the beneficiary was supposed to be the white settler. And then I must also say this. Our historians have failed us. The kind of history we are reading in Kenya is more of propaganda, but not real history. Those white farmers who are compensated, they were given a lot of money, not compensation. Actually, when you are buying land, you are, the white settler, because they did not want to be ruled by a black president or a regime of black people, the place that was very enticing and like they really wanted to go was Southern Rhodesia, that is Zimbabwe. So that if you sow land in Kenya, you'll get 5 times the price in Zimbabwe. So most of them actually went to Zimbabwe. In Kenya, we lost 6,750,000 acres of land to the white settlers. When we got independence, Zimbabwe had lost 17 million. But from our independence to Zimbabwe's independence, they lost another 18 million acres. So that means that the loot they got from Kenya in form of
they went and reinvested.
They went and invested. And if you are selling 10 acres in Kenya, 1,000 acres in Kenya, you are able to buy 5,000 acres in Zimbabwe. Yes. So all these things were meant to benefit the white race.
So it was basically compensation for them.
It was compensation for the whites, but for the Africans, it was a way of you must still pay for this land that you
that we are giving back to you.
But then the white people who got land initially in Kenya, they were given for free. And the Africans who owned the land were not compensated. Yes.
They had to buy. Let's take a break and continue the conversation.
Yeah.
We are talking about the what we saw as the brutal legacy of Britain in Kenya. Joel Kimutai Buzek is an advocate of the High Court. He is representing the Kipsigis and the Talai in a case before the European Court of Human Rights, and is saying these two communities suffered great atrocities in the hands of the British, and they ought to be recognized, compensated, and apologized to. Those three. I've summed it up rightly, right? Yes. Patrick Adhara is a man who talks about all these things. He says, in fact, even the system that we have now.
Imetoka kwao.
This is this system. Okay, let's take a break. The Standard Chartered Marathon is coming up soon.
Why are you running?
For life, for fitness, for feeling good, for everything. You want to feel like an athlete, Patrick?
I'm running for it. I'm planning to do it. Already training. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me whether people will be running through the express highway. At least for the very first time.
That's a different.
No,
the expressway is the Uhuru Classic.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
It's called Uhuru Classic.
Okay.
The Standard Chartered Marathon is on the lower roads. It's on a different route. They use the southern bypass. And that's where the Nairobi, the Standard Chartered Marathon actually takes place. And in preparation for this, the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is actually also preparing for, what we're calling Feel Like an Athlete, bringing together just people to prepare for the marathon and just build a hype and make yourself feel comfortable for it. We'll tell you more about it, Patrick. Now that you are ready for it.
Yeah, I'm running for it. I'll do the half marathon though.
Yeah, 21?
21. Yeah.
That's good.
I can do 10 kilometers.
You can do 10?
Yes, you can.
You'll do 10?
Sure.
Ndu, you're doing?
Got a bar looking at me. I don't even understand these hard questions that you're asking me. I am supporting. There's even walking.
Did
you know? There's even walking. There's a virtual run. So long as you finish.
Yes.
Finishing is
what is important. Yeah. We'll tell you more about it. It's 23 minutes to 10.
Sure.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice.
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me.
Obi.
Showmax has done it again. County 49.
Watele hoye!
A gripping political drama that follows the ongoings within Bwatele County, Kenya's fictional 49th county, will premiere on Showmax on Thursday, the 25th of August.
If any of our demands are not met, your governor will be executed live online.
Tune into the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday to find out more about County 49 and why you need to subscribe to Showmax for this and more premium Kenyan content.
Japan is a multicultural hub that has perfected the balance between cutting-edge technology and world-class infrastructure. Against the backdrop of stunning natural monuments and history, you have the opportunity to experience all this while studying for your master's or PhD in some of the world's best institutions, offering leading programs in information technology, biomedical science, the social sciences, among others. To learn more about how you too can study in Japan, join me, Eric Latif, and my co-hosts Nduoko and CT Muga in the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every Wednesday morning this whole month. See you then.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth
Cloudy
jazz.
conditions at 19
neo-
in Nairobi, highs of 26. We'll see highs of 25 today in a sunny Nakuru at 18. It's sunny at 19 in Nyeri, highs of 24. 24 will be the high in a sunny Eldoret. It's raining in Mombasa, still continues. We'll go to highs of 29, and 29 will be the high in a rainy Malindi. It's sunny at 23 in Kisumu. We'll see highs of 28 in Kakamega. Looking out into Kampala, hazy morning at 23, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 28 in Dar es Salaam, where it's raining at 25. 10 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 22, and Lagos is rainy at 24. We'll go to highs of 29. 31 will be the high and mostly cloudy. Kinshasa at 25. Looking out east into Beijing, it's sunny at 26 and it's cloudy at 8 in Paris, cloudy at 11 in London, and 21 and clear in New York. Monday night coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 27.
Spice up your life.
Getting out of traffic hour according to the clock, just a little bit of traffic here and there on Jogo Road. Lunga Lunga is also still doing that thing. Into the CBD is probably where you see the most of it. Then going out to Landy is really heavy as you're approaching that Kamkunji roundabout. Looking at this whole thing, Hurlingham going out towards Lavington. It looks much better on James Gishuru as you get towards Wayaki Way, so not too much of an issue with that. Coming out of Westlands, your exits on the expressway, you find some issue there. And then under there, Huru Highway out into Westlands, a little bit as well. But traffic are not too much of an issue, at least not from now. Through the morning, let's talk SpiceFM. KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Joel Kimutai Buzek, advocate, Patrick Adara, communications consultant and curator of The Elephant. We are talking about the atrocities committed by the British in Kenya before independence and even after independence, in many cases. So you're representing the Kipsigis and the Talai in this particular case, European Court of Human Rights, and somebody has been asking, since the death of Queen Elizabeth II, these issues came up. Why are we mourning the monarch who was at the helm when all these atrocities were taking place? And there's been divided, debate on, there are people who are saying, look, people, come on. It happened, we got our independence. Can we now focus on building our own state and we let go, bygones be bygones? Why should it be important for us to look back into this and demand justice?
Justice is something that must be addressed for us to be able to move on. And then this is not a very unique case. Remember, even the Herero people of Namibia are being compensated by the Germans. Yet the Germans were there for up to 1915. We know that. During the First World War, the Germans lost all the colonies in the world or in Africa. And the beneficiaries of the Herero resources was actually the British and the South Africans, whites. But the Germans have taken it upon themselves, not even after being prompted by anybody, to say sorry for what happened before 1910. The British are still milking. They're still exploiting resources in Kericho. And we are saying, look here, you need to compensate for what happened. We also need to have a share of this. So why should we forget when we are still hurting? It's like telling somebody who is writhing in pain to forget about the pain. It's impossible.
Is there any part of the British Empire where they've ever gotten a word like sorry for what we did?
In the Mau case, they were almost doing that.
But
they express regret.
Right.
And let me also say this. They were only willing to compensate the Mau when a judge in England said that the British government must be held responsible. And they never wanted a precedent to be set. That's why they said, come on, guys, let's discuss this thing out of court.
So they settled out of court.
They were fearing a situation where a precedent is created.
Yeah, and it was actually even those very documents, the appearance of them, of what's in the Hanslope archive, that basically showed that they were complicit. And don't forget, these are documents, as I said, they had been hiding from their own courts. They were buried, basically in a bunker, stuff. And it's only when this then came to light that suddenly, they did an about turn. Now let's have a settlement. ETC, let's express regret. Can't really apologize, but let's express regret, stuff. And anyway, to speak to your point, I mean, I think given the case of the Herero, Germans haven't really behaved very well. I mean, they had to be really pushed to first acknowledge that there was a genocide that they committed in Namibia, and even the compensation they're giving, is a pittance compared to what they're giving, for example, for World War II victims. So, to the people who say this was long ago, by 2020, Germany had basically paid $92 billion to victims of the Holocaust. $92 billion. They are still paying till today. They are paying them stipends till today. In fact, over the coronavirus period, I think in 2020 or 2021, they came up with $700 million, to help the Holocaust survivors go through coronavirus, the COVID pandemic. And when we talk about it here, we are told, no, that is long ago. Forget about it. No, it's not long ago. Secondly, we are living with the legacy of what those guys did, till today. There has been no acknowledgement on their end that, well, actually, we did mess you guys up, and I think we really need to insist that our lives are no less important, no less valuable than the lives of people in Europe, etc. If things were switched, do you imagine the British would be saying, well, that's long ago, they chased Libya
We're all human.
for Lockerbie for how long? etc. They don't forget about that stuff.
Indeed.
So to tell us that we should forget is to simply say that our lives are somehow lesser, and I say they're not.
I'm looking at the example that you've given, Patrick, of, the victims of the Holocaust and then the compensation that Germany continues to make unto date. And I'm looking at one of the reasons for that, because, look, one of the reasons for that is that the Holocaust, in its magnitude, in terms of what happened, was made very public. Even after 1945 and the war ended, and 1946, and now people started to find their way back, and then the Nuremberg trials thereafter, it was made extremely public. The atrocities that were committed to these people were put in the public glare. Everybody knew what happened, down to the child who died, down to those who were electric. It was made public. There would have been no other way for them to hide. And I think that may be one of the things. And for me, I'm going to be very bold about this. When we say forget it and we say put it aside, what you're doing is that you're covering it up.
Yes.
You're putting a blanket on it, you're shrouding it so that it is not in the public, so that Kipsigis will not say this is what happened. You will not know what happened. You will never hear that the place was called Reserve next to Animals for Africans. You will never hear that happened. And so once you put it in the dark, the likelihood of anybody to feel any kind of emotion towards that and insist that something will be done then decreases significantly.
No, you're right. I think the fact is lots of this is hidden. Again, bring me back to that archive. You see, lots of these Momo people were saying that they had been tortured, they had been put in camps, they had been, put in these villages. But the British denied it.
Saying no.
Never happened. These guys are making it up till we got the archive. And that's why it's really important for us to get it back, bring it back here, because there's lots more in there where we can mine about our experiences, and we come up with a much more useful history, a much more accurate history about what happened. The second thing is on the issue of justice. Till today, you have 100-year-old guards being prosecuted, for what they did during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
So a guy was a guard at
just
Auschwitz
a
or
guard.
whatever.
Yeah.
100 years old. They don't forget about it. We've got people who tortured people here in Kenya. Living in Kenya, living in the UK. Nobody goes after them. Nobody goes and said, well, you went and castrated somebody, which they did. That you took a hot bottle and put it in a vagina of a woman, which they did.
As a matter of fact,
we are told, forget it.
As a matter of fact, hold it there.
There is
as a matter
no
of fact,
justice there.
As a matter of fact, in the Mau Mau 2 case, both the High Court of England and the Court of Appeal agreed that opening up that case will be prejudicial to the defendants, to the respondents. They are blind to the sufferings of the victims.
But yes, it would.
Yeah,
absolutely, it would, and that's all right.
That's why
exactly. But that's my point. You see, when we said, and so we've got our new president who decides is going for the Queen's funeral, fine. These are not issues he's going to raise.
That is it.
He's not going to sit with them and talk and say, well, actually,
by the way,
you guys behaved very badly. This is something we need to discuss. We've got a British High Commissioner here. She has press conferences, etc. The media doesn't stop her and say, well, actually, your people did here, this and this and this. etc. We need to start insisting our history matters. The things that happen to us matter. Sure. And I think the moment, just as you're saying, happened with the Holocaust, it could have been easily hidden away. I mean, there are genocides. You can think of the Armenian genocide, etc. That have been that there's been attempts to hide them. Herero genocide is another one. And until we refuse to say, well, actually, no, we are not just footnotes in history. We are participants. These things happen to us, and they matter. And we make sure at every place that we interact with these guys, these are issues we bring up. Give us back our documents that you stole. Start compensating, and in fact, start prosecuting people who are who committed crimes over here. And
then the other issue is the British are very good in investing in international diplomacy to hide their atrocities which they committed in the past. Every time this independent former British colony, they are very quick to recruit it into the so-called Commonwealth, which, if you were to analyze and explain what all this is all about, you probably will be, you'll just wonder, is there really what is called wealth, which is common to all of us? Is there anything that we are sharing other than having a very bad and ugly past with the British? SADC countries, the one in Southern Africa, you can actually tell that they are trying to do everything possible to bring themselves into oneness. You go to a country like South Africa, which has more advantage than the rest. They even give scholarships and treat any member from any student from the member countries like a South African when it comes to paying tuition and stuff like that. But today, you as a member of the Commonwealth, you are sending your son, your daughter to Britain. That son of yours will pay 3 times what a British student is paying. In other words, he'll pay school fees and pay for 2 other British students. So where is Commonwealth in this?
Indeed.
When our resources are being controlled by one former superpower who was controlling the region and cheating us that, let's have Commonwealth games here and there. I mean, let's be serious.
I've read some of the things that you've written and also heard some of the commentary you made on dealing in governance on the continent today. I mean, not just in Africa, but dealing on the continent as former colonies of Great Britain. That has a direct impact on the governance that we see today. I don't agree that our governance today and the habitual way in which we continue to go towards underdevelopment should be blamed on the colonialists. I do, however, agree that a system that has been created came about as a result of that and those atrocities. You've made that link. How do you see that the system within which we operate today has its ties to back then?
Start with the idea of countries.
We didn't come together as Africans and decide to, let's segment this continent, the way it is.
Yeah.
They did. Take Kenya. Good example. They come here, they draw 41 administrative boundaries. And lo and behold, we have 42 tribes. You think that is not related to what they did? Lots of the things we are doing till today are stuff that we have borrowed. From there, you see our guys with their wigs, if you just take some of the less important issues,
The language you're using.
Yeah. Oh, my lord, and when you go to the Supreme Court, and those lawyers starting up with their wigs, our speaker, with his wig, where is that from? A lot of these things are not things that are for us, They were meant to, and they were created to, so we would honor the whites. We would look up to the whites.
We'd bang back with them.
Yeah, and when we got independence, to be quite honest, the people who got independence, the generation that got independence, had been cultured to think that actually what they really want to do is to be white. So they all moved to the places where the white people were living. They all start wearing the things the white people wear. Charles Jonjo being a very good example. And we start behaving like them. We start fighting over the titles that they had. Oh, who's going to be called Your Excellency? Who's going to be called this? So that's, those are things that we have legacies to today. Think of corruption, There's a very fantastic book called Looters and Grabbers. I think it's Joe Kamisi who wrote it. And he traces corruption, and he says this idea that we've been taught that corruption came from Africans taking gifts to their chiefs. There has never been documented places where guys used to go and say, "Oh, here's my goat, let me take it to the chief." There's nothing. Corruption is a product of the colonial system. They came with it here. In fact, Delamere is quoted in that book as far back as 1908 saying, an African cannot walk outside his gate, without meeting a policeman asking him for a bribe. An Indian policeman at the time. Who brought those Indian policemen? The colonial system itself was built to steal. They created a government to allow them to steal. And then we are surprised that our government keeps stealing from us, because that was what it was made to do. That was what it was built to do. And until we recognize that, so when we had the Independence Constitution in 1963, Githumigai writes a paper in 1982, very nice, interesting paper, where he says, basically, we tried to impose a liberal constitution on an authoritarian colonial structure, administrative structure. And what happened, that structure didn't change, the constitution changed.
It had to.
2010, we tried the same thing. Then suddenly we are hearing BBI, let's change the constitution.
Because there's some things that are not
working. The things that are under here remain. The government remains as it stills. The policemen remain, the citizen, what did the Ransley report call them? A citizen policing. Anyway, basically they are there to protect the government from us. That's why the police. That's why the IBA created the police. That's why the colonial government, built up the police. The one there to help you and me. So all these systems are there till today. Now, I'm not saying that it's about blaming the colonialists. What I'm saying is we need to acknowledge this is what we got. And it's not just Kenya, across Africa. It's a problem across Africa. That we made
old enough to break it down.
Yeah, what we did is we confused two things. We confused independence, the idea of independence, with the idea of decolonization.
Right.
And we did not recognize that simply getting political independence is one thing.
Did not decolonize.
Doesn't mean you've decolonized. Right. And that's the work of decolonizers that we haven't done till today.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Your closing remarks in about 20 seconds.
Okay.
On this.
Thank you very much. I thought we'll still probably say a lot about this subject. And we are very grateful. For having brought us here, and for whatever that we've been able to discuss today, and hoping that you'll also invite us in the future.
Yes, Joel.
Yes, thank you.
As this case progresses, we want you to come back and give us updates on what's happening. In fact, if you can even link us up with some of those case studies and the stories, and tell us more, so that people, when they listen to the stories, they actually can relate. This is what this person has taken before the European Court of Human Rights. This is what we are asking for. This is what we are demanding.
Thank you.
Joel Kimutai Bosek is an advocate. He's representing the Kipsigis and the Talai in a court at the European Court of Human Rights. Patrick Adara is a curator of The Elephant. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's conversation. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. Members of Council